So, I heard you're looking for a go-to source for entertainment.
Wait for it.
Gaming?
Wait for it.
Anime?
Plus Ultra!
Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is... wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wait For It podcast. I am your co-host, Phil Barrera, aka Phil the Filipino.
And I'm your other co-host, Mr. Eric Almighty. And we finally made it to the end of 2024, to the most anticipated awards show of the season. The entire year, it's led to this. Welcome to the Wait For It podcast 2024 End of Year Awards.
Yes, hello to all of the news outlets that are tuning into this episode to see where we and some of our friends of the show have landed in terms of the best of 2024. As we always say, this is the most acclaimed award show in all of pop culture. And, I think the numbers will reflect that, as we'll be quitting all of this very soon. And you'll see us on the red carpet any day now. So, Eric, very excited to go over 2024 with not only yourself, but also some of our friends.
It's going to be a good time. This is going to be one of our longer episodes, really recapping the year, both a celebration and just a look back at the highs and the lows that the year had to offer in film, gaming, anime, and beyond. So really, really excited just to break all of that down here. If this is your first episode, wow, you're in for a doozy. Thanks for joining us. But I really think we're going to have a great time looking back into the year. And there's so much that we're going to be looking forward to in some of our future episodes here going into 2025. So be on the lookout for that. But for now, Phil, I am excited to kind of look back at 2024 and see what happened.
Yeah, so if this is your first time listening, or if you need a reminder of where to find all the rest of our content, stick around to the end of this episode. We'll let you know where you can find everything to keep up with the Wait For It podcast as we turn the page into what is going to be a really, really fun and crazy 2025 for us. I know we say that every year, but as this show continues to grow and you guys grow with us, we just have more and more fun things to share with you very, very soon. So to go over the outlook, or the layout of this episode, I should say, we streamlined things a little bit this year as opposed to previous years. So we would usually go best and worst of, movie, worst song of the year, worst video game, all that kind of stuff. We're streamlining it this year because, one, we have more clips than we've ever had, which I tried to minimize, but that wasn't the case thanks to a buddy of ours, as we'll talk about here in just a moment. But no, we're having a good time with him. We're going to tease him this entire episode. But we will point out some of the downs of 2024. Those will just come up naturally, but we wanted to focus on the things that we really enjoyed in 2024. So it is streamlined to Best Picture, Best Animated Picture, Best TV Show, Best Anime, Game of the Year, Artist of the Year, and Song of the Year. The order we'll be going in, we'll talk about here in just a moment. But yeah, Eric, anything else that maybe we want to cover before we jump into it and get started? Because like you said, this is going to be a long one, so get settled in. Maybe you're sitting down there with your family, nice cup of hot cocoa, or you put it on while you're playing a video game. This is a good episode to listen to because you can get comfortable, and we'll talk about all the best that 2024 had to offer.
Now, I think we are ready to go. By the time this episode had dropped, Christmas will have just passed, so we're all drowning in presents, overwhelmed at what we're going to be re-gifting or throwing out.
You got your Wait For It Patreon subscription as a gift. Welcome.
Welcome. What an amazing gift. That one, don't throw out.
And then you were like, what the fuck is the Wait For It podcast?
You're about to find out. So strap in, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to go.
All right, folks. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with a banger. We're going to get into Best TV Show. And I said that we're going to tease somebody here throughout this entire episode because, as I said, we enlisted the help of some of our fellow content creators and friends here on this episode. And in order to try and streamline things, we said, hey, here are the categories this year. If you guys could pick 2 categories, max it out at 2 just to streamline the episode. Well, friend of the show, and host of the World's My Burrito podcast, Corey, did one for every single category. So you will hear Corey for every category this year. And I figure, Eric, you know what? What better way to start than with Corey's choice for best TV show of 2024? So let's see what he had to say.
What up? It's your boy Corey T coming at you from the World is My Burrito. I'm here for this 2024 rank and review thing we got going on. The best of, just ranking, no reviews. There's some reviews. Best TV show. This is another one of those points where I realize I don't watch a lot of regular TV. I miss out on a lot of stuff. So Ultraman Arc. Ultraman Arc takes it. It has been very enjoyable. Following basically like national park workers through, the beginning of the show. It's kind of oriented on them being like national park workers who are kind of helping with kaiju studies. It's charming. It's a lot of fun. Even the current episodes, we're finally getting into that, like nearing the end. So the ante has been upped. It's still good, but Ultraman Arc definitely takes best TV show.
So there we have it from Corey. It would not be a Corey submission without the mention of Ultraman, so shout out to him. And my apologies for still not embarking on my Ultraman journey, as when he sent me a dissertation about where to start, I got overwhelmed, and I just have not done it yet. But Eric, we have obviously covered Ultraman in a previous episode in 2024 of Late to the Part. No, it was International Feature that we did, Ultraman Rising. It was
Yep.
Yeah, so obviously we have been interested in the character in some way, shape, or form. So the Ultraman Arc show is only something I'm familiar with because of Corey. So I don't know if this is something that ever came across your mind, if you have also thought about going into an Ultraman deep dive. But this is a show that, again, I was familiar with mainly because of our buddy Corey.
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard of it. Definitely want to still get into some Ultraman stuff. Corey is going to continue to push us to that. It is funny. I almost sent you a message, Phil, saying, what did he send? Like an Ultraman documentary? And we're pretty close. Pretty close. So really, really funny to see that submission, but totally in line with who we know and love in Corey. So great submission. Will I check it out? Great question. There are a lot of shows that I missed out on that we're going to talk about, I'm sure, here before we get to our picks, but
Yeah.
that is also one that I have not gotten to.
There's going to be a difference here with shows we'd be interested in checking out and shows that we're actually going to watch, because, this year I focused a lot on film, and then over the last month or so I've been trying to catch up on television shows, which ultimately led to, my pick here this evening that we'll talk about in a moment. But Eric, let's get to our next submission here, another pick for TV show of the year.
Hi guys, it's Feline, and this is my pick for the best TV show of 2024. My opinion, it is from season 3. I just started this show this year and fell in love with it. It has become one of my favorite TV shows, and it hasn't even ended yet. It just got greenlit for season 4, and I cannot wait to see where this story is going. We got some major answers in season finale of season 3, and I truly cannot wait to see this cast get together again and bring us just some good horror TV. I have truly been looking for just a good horror TV show, and this really brings in all the elements that I love. Perfect gore, perfect characters, perfect story. I really am excited for this show's future and hope to see people really jump on this train and watch this show, and I cannot recommend it enough.
So there you go. Shout out to my sister Flynn, who has joined us on quite a few episodes of What Did I Miss here in 2024. And Eric, I'm sure in our group chats or the voice chat whenever we hop in and play video games, you've heard Jordan and Flynn talk about from the same creators, I believe, that made Lost, which I know people were like a little apprehensive about, but yeah, From is a show that I've not only heard those two talk about, but quite a few other people as well.
Yeah, one that's again, it's a genre in general in media that I don't go into enough, but for television specifically, it's not one that I dive into very often, but it is one that you just hear about through the grapevine. And I'm not surprised, Flynn, out of everybody, to pick one in that space. So yeah, no, great choice.
Yeah, you know me that I'm not the biggest fan of obviously like body horror stuff, so she has informed me this is not something that I'd be able to get through very easily, but very, very glad to hear that it's been getting a lot of good response. It's got a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that is worth something. The thing, obviously, with Lost, looking back at it, is obviously the ending, which as I've come around and gotten a little bit older and watched a lot of YouTube documentaries, gone down a lot of rabbit holes, it's something that I've come to terms with and actually understood a lot more. So hopefully it's something they figured out in terms of finishing a story. Harold Perrineau is fantastic in Lost, so I only assume that he is fantastic in From as well. But Eric, before we reveal our selections, let's go ahead and get to our last submission for TV show of the year. And why don't we head on over to the JPU?
Yo, Phil and Eric, what up? And a big hearty Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all that good stuff to the Wait For It podcast listeners. It's your boy Bodder Milligan from the Shortbox Podcast, the comic book talk show that brings you the best conversations about comic books with the people that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making them, calling in to take part in this end-of-year award show episode. Maybe I should phrase this as my favorite movie and favorite TV show of the year that are both going to be comic book-centric. My favorite TV show of the year, I'm going to go and give that to The Penguin, which in hindsight is like, well, yeah, duh, that's an easy pick right there. That show was incredible, but going into it, I don't think any of us, at least myself considering, really thought it was going to be such a impactful show like it has been. I mean, it nailed everything from the character building, the world building, the action, the emotion, the drama, the gravitas. I mean, the acting. I mean, let's give it up. I mean, Colin Farrell was in a transformational role. I mean, literally and figuratively. Then you've got great supporting roles and cast like Kristen Miliotto playing Sophia. Mark Strong in the show, Theo Rossi, Clancy Brown, and of course, last but not least at all, is Deirdre O'Connell, who plays Frances. I mean, everyone brought their A game to this show, but this is how you do a B-list, C-list villain and take them to the stratosphere. This is how you do a spin-off show that ties into a larger movie. I mean, from episode 1 to the very end, it was gripping, it was moving, it was, I mean, just some of the, I'm still thinking about some of these scenes and what they were able to pull off on TV, but The Penguin has set the bar very high for other comic book TV shows. So us comic book heads and comic book fans, we're eating good this year, and I'm hoping that 2025 only brings bigger and better things.
So there we go. Great breakdown from Bodder from the Shortbox Podcast. Shout out to him, the JPU, Blythe, everybody over there. But yeah, Eric the Penguin, I believe you've also started this recently. I have also started, I believe I am on episode 6, and it has deserved all of the praise that it has been heaped on it throughout the entire year. Colin Farrell has been, oddly enough, in like between the Penguin and then 2 other projects, like 3 of our most highly rated projects that we've done here on the podcast, and he has just been fantastic between obviously Banshees of Inisherin and then In Bruges and now the Penguin. So, and then Kristen Milioti, who is fantastic. I loved her in Palm Springs, but what I've known her from, and a lot of others, is she is, spoiler alert, she is the mother in How I Met Your Mother, showing up in the final season, and she is, I fell in love with her back then, so to see her in this role and being such a powerhouse, she is fantastic. So Eric, the Penguin, not surprised that had come up here at this point.
No, not surprised at all. And I'm not going to be able to include shows that I've started and haven't finished, but I wouldn't be surprised, based off of what I know and what I've seen so far, if that the Penguin would probably win this award. There's a real possibility here for me. Some other shows that I just missed as far as this window of trying to get them in before the end of the year. Baby Reindeer, I've been wanting to watch all year. I heard great things about that. Shrinking, I wanted to catch up to season 2. After now finally watching the first season of Severance, I do plan on Shrinking being another Apple TV experience that I embark on. Batman Cape Crusader was another one that just continued to get floated around, and I was a sucker for those classic Batman animated series. So those are just a couple out there for context before we get to ours. But again, any one of those, had I watched them, could have impacted this award.
Yeah, as far as honorable mentions for me, definitely the Penguin for sure is up there. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I enjoyed the hell out of. The Fallout TV show was great. We talked about it a little bit before. Arcane season 2, while it did not reach the heights of season 1, it is still outstanding. And Eric, you might be surprised, an honorable mention here for me, Shogun also deserves a ton of praise and all the awards that it got, but it was not my TV show of the year. So let's go ahead and see where you landed for best TV show of 2024.
Yeah, because I have no clue what you're picking now. That's crazy. Another show I'll mention, Fallout was an honorable mention as well for me, the shows that I had watched. X-Men 97, also a show that came out this year, and we were late to the party on, but we did catch up by the end of the year in time for this awards. Very good products on television that have been put out there across the board. For me, and it does kind of feel like a default award because, again, I haven't gotten to all the shows I've wanted to. I probably could have watched maybe 5 less movies and 2 less anime to fit in a couple of those shows. It just didn't work out that way. My best TV show of 2024 is gonna go to Arcane Season 2. And that, again, may feel a little bit like a default for someone who may not watch a lot of television, but truly, it was an amazing season of television. There really are opportunities. It is not perfect, but I don't think the first season was perfect either. And that's in my opinion. Going into season 2, I was looking to see what they really continued to grow on. And while they didn't ever really fully accomplish what I think they wanted to in just 2 seasons, what they did in 2 seasons and season 2 specifically was remarkable. It was all we were talking about for the several weeks that they were dropping episodes on Netflix. And for that reason, maybe recency bias, that is my television show for the year of 2024.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that selection at all. Season and animation wise, you can kind of get an idea of why it took us so long to get season 2. Love these characters. Love that at least portions of the League of Legends community are pretty happy that people are getting to know these characters in a different medium. Are we going to play the game? Never. That's never going to happen, but we'll gladly jump back into this world of League of Legends and excited to see what they do next. Just hopefully it doesn't take 4 years, so we'll see. But Eric, my TV show of the year is one you had already mentioned, and it is Shrinking. Shrinking Season 2 reached all of the heights that I was expecting in terms of a follow-up to Season 1. It's emotional, it's got incredible character depth, it's got incredible writing, and it is one of the funniest shows on television, if not the funniest right now. There is an episode, this is not a spoiler, there is an episode where Harrison Ford, his current girlfriend in the show, and his ex-wife are both talking to each other, and his son-in-law is like, oh, it's great to see them getting along, huh? And Harrison Ford says the words, I hope they're talking about how I fuck. And if that's not a selling point for Shrinking, I don't know what else it is. I don't know what else it could be. Jason Segel, obviously fantastic. Bill Lawrence continues to be just an incredible mind in terms of comedy and drama. And Shrinking is my TV show of the year. So yeah, Eric, I think you'll very much enjoy that one. It's incredibly high quality and just continues to be one of those Apple TV shows that flies under the radar because, again, no one is subscribed to Apple TV.
Yeah, again, one that I hear just people raving about that have watched it, And very much in the same light of your Severance, your Ted Lasso, I feel like Shrinking is that third big show that I've just always heard on that platform. So one that I definitely want to get into. And man, old man Harrison Ford, always a good time. So that alone, I'm sold.
God, he is just so good in that. Yeah, Jessica Williams, the cast is outstanding. So, yep, shout out to Shrinking and Arcane. Again, both really, really solid shows. But Eric, let's transition to the world of music here. And we'll go with Song of the Year first. We had a couple of submissions. Obviously, one of them is Corey. So let's go ahead and see what Corey had to say for Song of the Year.
Song of the Year, this one was a little bit more difficult to pick, but I'm going to go with The Devil in Me by Duran Gray. These guys have been playing since 97. Japanese rock band. They're really good. They have such a massive library that they can sample their own selves, like pull from their own different eras of music. And the new song, it's just on a single of the same name. Very good song. And man, I love Duran Gray. This is another one of those like seminal bands that, I'll talk about all the time.
And one of the cool things about this episode is like people will bring up things that we just weren't familiar with. I'm not familiar with this song. I didn't get a chance to listen to it. I was cropping up all of these clips before we got started here this evening. But again, one of the great things about this is people bringing in, their specific taste and recommendations from all over. So is this a song that you had heard of, or I'm not sure if this is? I'm so sorry, Corey. I don't know if this is a band. I believe it's a band. He said, but not someone that I'm familiar with.
No, same here, but this is really awesome because I do plan. Music is the most subjective thing I think that we're going to run into when it comes to these lists. And I am always looking for a new song to put on and have in the background and really jam to and listen to on repeat. So where that falls into it, I don't know, but Corey, I can tell you now, I definitely will be checking that out and all the submissions because music is just something we can't get enough of. Easy plug. We got a playlist on Spotify. Update that every Monday, so check that out.
Definitely. So thanks, Corey, for that submission there and a new recommendation. But Eric, there is going to be no secret as to what my song of the year is. And, there is somebody who wanted to let our audience know, as well as us, that they probably feel the exact same way.
Hey, Phil and Eric, this is Eli from Super Bracket Bros, here to give you my picks for the Wait For It End of the Year Awards. My first pick is going to be probably a popular answer this year, but I'm going with Song of the Year going to Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. A certified haters anthem that transcended pop culture. It was so fun hearing Kendrick at the top of his craft, just dragging Drake along the way. I won't deliberate because I'm sure you have many people going to talk about it, including you, Phil. So again, Kendrick Lamar is great. Not Like Us is great.
It's short and to the point because there's not really much else to say. So I will go first here, Eric, with Song of the Year because I can't go anywhere else but with Not Like Us. I think I was in like the top 0.05% of players this year on Spotify in terms of that song. And it was just a crazy year for Kendrick Lamar in general. I'm sure we'll talk about him here in just a moment to give you a little spoiler, at least on my end. But Not Like Us was, for that song, just to live in that moment of euphoria and Not Like Us and Meet the Grams and just realizing like it was like there was some sort of attack and someone was hitting a panic button and they're like, Kendrick released again. And when Not Like Us came out, after the criticism that he couldn't put out like a catchy song, a song that they would play in the club, and then to that being played in clubs all over the country, the world, that evening was absolutely insane. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a lot of people's picks.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy pick to make. It's got to be the most memorable song of 2024. And that was in a year where we've had banger after banger in all genres. So, yeah, not surprised that that's yours. And had the album for Kendrick Lamar came out sooner, it could have very easily been Squabble Up, TV Off, any of those other ones. Luther getting a lot of traction. as well. So my pick, I'm going to go over some honorable mentions just because I feel like, again, music is such a big genre in general. And I figured once we get to music artists of the year, we can also talk about the other side of music, because there were definitely some disappointments or really regressive music, which we'll get into.
I also have honorable mentions too. So when you're done, I forgot to do that.
Yeah, you go into yours before I go into mine, because I'm going to lead to my song of the year.
Okay,
so yeah, what are yours?
Other honorable mentions for me, I think you have to bring up Shabuzi and what he did in 2024 with the bar song Tipsy. His performance with Jaquan at the Country Music Awards, incredible. You cannot go through 2024 without mentioning Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, fantastic. Euphoria, also I just mentioned it a moment ago. And the Chaperone, how can you not bring up Hot to Go or any of her other songs that made it big in 2024? But thanks for reminding me, because I did have those as honorable mentions for sure. You can't bring up 2024 without Shabuzi, Sabrina Carpenter, Chaperone, Charlie XCX. They had fantastic years.
Yeah, all fantastic years. My number one song of the year was actually "Try" by Fly By Midnight, which Phil was very surprised about. I
was like, I did not know you liked Fly By Midnight this much.
They were also in my top 5.
They're excellent.
Yeah, they were also in my top 5 artists as well. But "Try" specifically was just such a smooth song that you could just. It was one of those songs you can kind of play on repeat in the background and just really vibe to. And I think those repeat listens really added up by the end of the year. Another top song was called Wildflower by Black Sands. Absolutely love the vibe. And sticking with vibes from The Bear Season 3, Save It For Later by Eddie Vedder was just, again, really, really good. The riff of everything from the intro of that song all the way to its ending. Really, really great song. There were also a couple other songs that I wanted to shout out. Flame by Justin Timberlake. I really listened to way more Justin Timberlake than I guess anyone else this year. Villain by Venice Quinn. This is probably the song out of all these that you are like, who? You really need to check out that song. Just Like Paradise by The Strike. Strike is really, really good. They put out a really great album as well this year. And finally, Bloom from the In Pieces musical was a high contender here. In fact, I'm surprised it didn't end up in my top 5 songs of the year. For my top song, though, I went with the one that I absolutely cherish the most, and that is a song off of Charlie XCX's album, Brat, Sympathy Is a Knife. I absolutely love this song. When I first heard it, it's absolutely infectious, from the bass to the synths in the background. If you play this max volume in the car, you are in for a really, really good time. And that's actually how I first listened to it. And it's something I had in the background constantly to end up as my number 2 song of the year. Had it came out sooner, probably would have been my number 1 over Try by by Midnight. So yeah, that is my song of the year. And honestly, not close, but Try and then also Bloom, high contenders. Any song off of Epic the Musical as well, which I'm just precursing to Artist of the Year now, that also is in contention.
Yeah, Bloom was in my top 5 for my Spotify Wrapped, along with Like That, the Future and Kendrick song that kicked off the entire thing. And then State Champs was also up there as far as their new album. But yeah, really, really great choices for a song of the year. And you know what? I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I knew I was going to forget to do this. I even typed out a note on my Google Keep. Don't forget to read the IG submissions, and I totally forgot. So here are some people's submissions for TV show of the year. Shout out to Ivan, Ivan Patch, who you'll hear from here in a little bit. He went with Shogun, along with our friend Erica. Erica went with Shogun as well. And then Justin, friend of the show, we see at every con, went with X-Men 97. So really, really great choices for a TV show of the year. So my apologies. I will try to do better going forward. Let's move into, we're going to stick with music, and we're going to go with Artist of the Year. And there is one of our creator friends, Eric, who never misses the opportunity to say who his favorite artist of whatever year that may be. And 2024 is no different. So let's hear from him.
The second category that I wanted to submit a award for would be Artist of the Year, Musical Artist of the Year. This year, Teenage Andrew was very happy. We got new music from Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace got their original lead singer back, and Linkin Park put out new music. Even though the overall album that they released didn't fully click with me, it was still a ton of nostalgia. but I want to give Artist of the Year to The Devil Wears Prada, because they're a band that continue to evolve their sound as time goes on, while still maintaining the same high bar of quality and the same vibes and energy that I've always loved in their music. This year, they released 2 new singles and an acoustic EP. Hopefully, we're getting a full album next year. They are one of, if not the only metalcore band that I listened to as a teen that still releases consistently good music that I want to listen to now as an adult. And that's pretty impressive considering most of the other bands that I liked from that era are either just terrible now or their albums are extremely up and down. So that's why I wanted to shout these guys out. The Devil Wears Prada, Artist of the Year for me. Phil and Eric, thanks again for having me. Thanks again for inviting me to do this. Happy New Year, and looking forward to a great 2025. Oh, and stay friendly, gamers.
Shout out to Andrew from Friendly Neighborhood Gamers. Yeah, he is always giving us a submission for Artist of the Year, so thank you so much for that, Andrew. Yeah, Devil Wears Prada, not a band that I listen to all the time, but obviously very familiar with. Wasn't aware that they actually had released new music in 2024. And yeah, it was a good year I was actually talking about this with Corey, who, of course, we will hear from in a moment. We was talking to Corey about this, and it was a good year if you had not heard music from like an artist you hadn't heard from in quite a while. There was a lot of returns. You know, he just mentioned a couple of bands there. Tori Kelly's album that it's kind of like a 2023 and 2024 thing with her, as far as putting out new music. She had kind of like gone away for a little bit, and now she's putting out new music. JoJo put out some new music here this year in terms of the pop side of things. But yeah, Eric, do you have Devil Wears Prada in your rotation?
I feel like I've definitely heard them before, because that name I looked it up immediately as Andrew was talking, and I'm pretty sure I have, but not consistently enough to know them by name or even by a certain song. So another band I'm going to be checking out, and I really do trust Andrew's opinion when it comes to like that rock side of music, because he's very into it. Every time I put a rock song on the playlist, I see those likes on our story, Andrew. It's funny he mentions Linkin Park. Totally forgot to bring them up. The Emptiness Machine and Heavy is the Crown. Two-Face as well. Great songs. All songs, maybe not song of the year, but all that deserve respect. But I also respect his opinion about the album. I think it didn't meet up to the promise that those singles were giving off. And I definitely agree with that take. But yeah, no, definitely going to be looking into them, because anytime Andrew brings up something in the rock space, I'm all in. I could always go for more.
Yeah, absolutely. I had not listened to the Linkin Park album, mostly because I didn't necessarily vibe with those singles as much as other people did. But I do need to give myself give it a chance and go through it. I want to pivot here, Eric, to an Instagram submission once again from our friend Erica, who brought up Doechii, and I'm glad that she did, because she has been popping up everywhere recently in terms of like my algorithm and music, and I haven't listened to a lot of her music, but I do know when she pops up, I pay attention. So I know, you and I are also big fans of hip hop as well. And I don't know if you've seen Doechii come up anywhere in your algorithm, but she is definitely someone to watch. And I would even go as far to say that she might be next up.
100%. You took the words out of my mouth. It's literally been, if she shows up on a clip or something, I'm like zoned in. I'm like, oh, this sounds good. Honestly, why I haven't checked it out, I don't have a good answer for you. There's really no excuse.
Yeah, between Doechii and La Russell are two artists I found in 2024 in terms of hip hop. Very, very excited to see what comes next for them. So let's get to our next submission here, Eric, for Artist of the Year. As it's interesting that we've already had a little bit of a discussion about Linkin Park as we bring back Corey.
All right. Really glad that we have a division between Music Artist of the Year and Song of the Year. And this is still kind of difficult, but Artist of the Year, Linkin Park. Come on, man. Linkin Park is one of the most impactful bands of my childhood. And I mean, leading throughout the rest of my life. I still, well before the announcement of the new album, I always talk about Linkin Park. It is pretty common. If we're going to talk about older stuff, I'm going to talk about Linkin Park. And I am just loving the new vocalist. I think my buddy Vigo said it best, that the new album feels like a greatest hits. Like each song feels like it's from a different era. So the whole album is a banger. If you like anything of Linkin Park, you will find something to love on this album. It's so good.
Yeah, so again, I need to give that album a shot. Eric, you already talked about it here a little bit in terms of how much you have enjoyed it, and it's been obviously an interesting time for Linkin Park to return. One, I'm glad to see the band back, and and getting back to what they love and love what they're doing. Obviously, there was some of that, that controversy we're not going to get into, but for them to come back into the spotlight and obviously in a very, very tricky situation, I think it needs to be commended, because ultimately, could they have renamed the band and done something else? Sure, but I feel like it just seems like they're still Linkin Park. Yes, bands change vocalists all the time. Obviously, this is under much different and tragic circumstances, but for them to make a comeback this year, I think, it's only a good thing. Even if I'm not vibing with their music, I still think it's a good thing. The music isn't worse off for having Linkin Park back around, I guess is the way I'll put it.
No, I agree. And again, while in the album I've listened to at least twice, I do think I need to put a little bit more time in before I say they don't necessarily meet expectations. But I think they're leaning a lot. It's hard not to understand or agree that they're leaning a lot into like that whole hybrid theory, old school Linkin Park feel. Like, literally some of the songs have very similar beats. And you just can't get past that. And ultimately, I think Linkin Park right now is at its strongest with original music. I have heard a little bit of the new lead singer's renditions of the old songs. I would probably stop that. I think they're good enough on their own now to continue to make music and make a new name for themselves with a new lead singer. I'm fine with the decision personally. I like the vibe. I like the direction. And honestly, if that's your pick for Artist of the Year, totally can't blame you, because again, you either really like this new Linkin Park or apparently you don't. It doesn't really feel like there's too many people in the middle. I am leaning towards like more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as far as some honorable mentions for my pick for Artist of the Year, I have to go with what is my Spotify Artist of the Year, which was Childish Gambino. Eric, we had the just amazing opportunity and chance to see him live in concert in South Florida right before he had to shut it down for health reasons. So hopefully for those of you that did not get to see him in 2024, he is planning on hopefully returning in 2025 and scheduling those dates, so hopefully he gets to do that. It was an incredible show. The album is fantastic, and now we're waiting on the movie it's supposed to be accompanied by Tori Kelly. Obviously, someone I probably bring up each and every single year. She had another incredible year. 2024 was great for her. I saw her in concert when I went out to Dallas earlier this year, and honestly, how far she has come as a performer is just makes me really, really happy. She's much more comfortable than she has ever been. She's really enjoying the music that she's putting out. And I think it's more importantly the sound that she has always wanted to put out. So she had a great year. Once again, I feel like you cannot get through 2024 without bringing up Sabrina Carpenter. I don't even necessarily know that many of her songs showed up on my top songs list, but she just had such a great year that she deserves all of that notoriety and more. State Champs pretty much puts out an album every other year. Saw them in concert again, as we typically do in Orlando. Once again, put on a great show. But as a precursor, Eric, I got to give Artist of the Year to Kendrick Lamar. Again, if GNX had dropped a little bit earlier in the year, he probably would have been my top artist of 2024, as I've had that in pretty heavy rotation throughout the last month or so. But just, again, the year that he had, and with there being rumors of more coming before the Super Bowl, is insane. So between everything that happened with Drake and then him continue and then putting out the album and the Super Bowl announcement, all of that, I don't know that many people had a better year than one Kendrick Lamar.
Hard to disagree with you there, and not a bad choice. I would say the real picks for this, if you're not in the niche that I'm in, which is going to be my pick for Artist of the Year, is going to be Chaperone, Kendrick Lamar or Sabrina Carpenter. Like pick any of those three. Those are the logical conclusions you can make. I would never put Justin Timberlake here, but again, I digged his album. Sure, is it probably 5 years too late? Probably, but for what it was, I enjoyed it.
No
Charli
NSYNC,
XCX.
no NSYNC tour.
Comeback.
Yeah, nothing.
And it's crazy because Paradise featuring NSYNC is one of the best songs on the album. Hopefully it'll be a realization for him. Yeah, I mean, for the year... We were just talking about all these like comebacks that are happening. If he could just embrace that and let it happen before it's too late, that would be great. Charli XCX deserves a real shot here. I'd say if you were to put a fourth artist there out of the ones I mentioned earlier, she's definitely up there. Fly By Midnight, Linkin Park, those are all great choices. For me, Jorge Rivera Herons is the creator of Epic the Musical. He also is the lead for Epic the Musical. And if you're not following that, this has been something that's being developed for years. And it started out last year, very, very slowly. This year, it's been getting jam-packed with so many different songs and sagas, and they are officially finishing this on Christmas Day with the Ithaca Saga, closing up this concept album, and finally putting it in a spot where it can take liftoff. The numbers that this has been doing on platforms like Spotify, absolutely crazy. The reception, absolutely crazy. I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. Any song from Epic the Musical could have been my song of the year too. There are several contenders, but I really saved all of the praise for Artist of the Year. He was my number one artist because it was the artist that I listened to the most, but the entire cast of Epic the Musical, just an absolutely fantastic job. I'm going to shout this till my voice is hoarse. I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. Check it out. Give it a shot. I really, really enjoy it. And again, now that we've moved past the concept album phase, I'm really excited what the future holds, whether it is a Broadway stage play, whether it is an animated series or something like that. I mean, Phil, you just posted in our Discord today at the time of recording that Christopher Nolan film that he's working on is a freaking Odyssey movie. Are you kidding me? I love Greek mythology as well, so I'm a sucker for it. Sign me up. I'm really excited to see what the future holds, and I'm really passionate about this particular musical. So yeah, that is my Artist of the Year. And if none of that made sense, I just recommend checking it out because I totally get it. This is a me thing.
No, absolutely. No surprises here. Having obviously known and followed Eric's love for this here over the past couple of years. I mean, it wasn't my bag, but honestly seeing it evolve over time, really, really cool. And like you said, there are so many different avenues that they can explore in terms of stage play or animation, whatever it may be, or just merge into the Nolanverse. I don't know, whatever it is that they want to do next. Zendaya's got some singing pipes there, so we can make that work. But no, great choice for you, and definitely pops up on the aforementioned playlist all the time. So it will not be hard to find if you look for it over on our social media pages. But Eric, let's move into the next category. I think other than Best Picture, this is the one we have the most submissions for. So let's go ahead and jump into Game of the Year. And there are a couple people we haven't heard from yet, so let's go ahead and see what they had to say. You know what? Let's bring in one of our faves from whenever we get to go to, whether it be Brick City Anime Festival or Bold Matsuri. We always love seeing her face because she is just lights up every room she enters.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie, Soup Ninjaha cosplay, and my Game of the Year is Princess Peach Showtime. I have been a longtime fan of Princess Peach as a character. I always picked her in the sports games, in Mario Kart. I used to be a big fan of her original DS game, and I was so overjoyed when they announced Princess Peach Showtime, and it honestly over-delivered, completely surpassed my expectations for the game. It was so much fun and so girly and fun, and I think that they finally gave Peach her real shining star moment. No pun intended. Very much enjoyed it. I think it's a great game for anyone who wants to play it, and certainly for any Princess Peach fans.
Hey, thanks so much, Sophie, aka Soup Ninjaha. Obviously, we've had her on Creator Spotlight. What did I miss? We'll definitely be seeing, and we'll see her in a couple weeks here at Brick City Anime Festival. But Eric, Princess Peach, it's funny because with some of these games, with us being in this Fantasy Critic League now, we're going to be looking at them in terms of numbers. Like, to bring it to like a sports analogy, one of the worst types of sports fan is somebody that just looks at the stats and they're like, oh, that person had a bad game. And that's how you can look at Princess Peach and you say, oh, it only had like a 75 on Metacritic or whatever it is. But that doesn't, when it comes down to the people that are playing these games all the time, big time Nintendo fans like Sophie, like other people, they're having a good time when it comes to games like this. So while we talked about this in the upcoming episode, the 2025 Foresight, Nintendo isn't necessarily our bag, but it seems like they're still doing all the right things in terms of their core audience.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you are a Nintendo fan, I don't want to say the bar is lowered for you. I really don't want to make it sound like that, but you do have a certain expectation, and as long as they meet that, we're good, right? And if they throw in a couple of new elements, like, you like what you like, and that is kind of Nintendo. For me, I've just never really been into Nintendo for that reason. I'm kind of interested in games that are pushing the bar forward in gaming and in storytelling and other elements like that. But I mean, again, if you're a Nintendo stan, you're not going to get any complaints from me. If that was your game of the year, if you enjoyed Mario and Luigi Brothership, Party Jamboree, Super Mario Party Jamboree, all fine. All got respectable scores, decent scores. So I just think if you're a Nintendo fan, a game like that probably enhanced a little bit, and that's by no means a bad thing at all.
Yeah, I think that with like their flagship franchises, like your Zeldas, your Marios, those they're still putting out, like you said, as far they're hitting that bar that people are expecting. They're still fun, as opposed to when you look at like Pokemon, they're severely underperforming. So you're seeing now people are starting to want Pokemon to get better, and hopefully that will happen with the new Pokemon game coming out in supposedly 2025. But yeah, that's a really good point. As far as their other core franchises, they seem to be doing pretty well, and people are genuinely pretty happy. So thanks so much, Soph. We'll hear from her in a little bit. Let's go to our next submission here, Eric. Another one of our favorite bracketologists.
Hey there, Phil and Eric. This is Jay Davis coming to you from Super Bracket Bros, here to talk about my game of the year. And this is one that a lot of people were surprised to see amongst the nominees from the Video Game Awards for Game of the Year, but this has been my number one game since it came out at the very beginning of this year, and that's Balatro, the poker roguelike game, where from run to run, you are starting with a standard deck of 52 cards, but then you are fixing your deck through power-ups, bonuses, jokers, to create the absolutely most busted deck you can think of. And my god, this game is just serotonin boost after serotonin boost of watching numbers go ping, 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 up, up, up. And it's just so delightful. It's such a wonderful puzzle to put together, to figure out the power-ups, to figure out how they move together. It's an awesome game. I had so much fun with it this year, and I will continue to have fun with it. I know there's a big update coming in 2025 I'm excited about. Thank you guys for having me to submit my game of the year, and it's Balatro. Absolutely the best one.
Thanks so much, Jay. You'll be able to hear him very shortly in the 2025 Foresight episode, where he just had the absolute best time, had nothing negative to say about us whatsoever. But yeah, and Eric, he mentioned this the other night when we were recording Balatro. He's very much a big fan of that. It's not something that I am interested in diving into, but again, it's showing up on the game of the game of the year nominees. The nominations was obviously a lot of people were surprised, but it was there for a reason.
Yeah, if we could just extend that same energy to Astrobot, that'd be fucking cool.
What's that?
See, it's that's what I'm talking about. And then Jay, this is a game of the year. A lot of people are telling you the same thing. Like, how could it be voted? I will tell you, my brother Stefan showed me this literally earlier today, and I was like, I just don't understand it, and I want to play it to understand it. That's ultimately where I'm at with that game. It's got to be addicting. He mentioned the serotonin of it all. I can see that based off of the gameplay that I've seen so far. It's very much in your face gratification. And I think that's an addicting element. Whether or not that makes it a good game, to be determined. To be determined. But a game I do want to explore. It's not like it's a $60 investment to play the game. So trust me, it's on my Steam wish list, and it will probably become a game I own sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not so. I definitely, like you said, serotonin boost. I put 80 hours into TCG Card Shop Simulator this year because I like opening up cards
designed for you.
And putting
That's what I'm
together,
saying.
putting together, like opening cards and having a card, like running a store, like a simulator. Come on, it was exactly what I needed. But yeah, glad to see that at least somebody that we know has come across that game and had a lot of love for it. I do want to bring up some of the Instagram submissions for Video Game of the Year. One from, actually, I'll bring them up here. Oh, they had a submission. Why did they also answer on Instagram? Not going to read those right now. Ivan put Metaphor Fantasio, quote, haven't played it yet. So I feel like
Metaphor ReFantasio?
Yeah.
And he hasn't played it?
Yeah, that's what he put. That's what Ivan answered.
You're just trolling us now. What's going on? What's happening here? What's happening?
I just had to read that part because I was like, you can't select a game you haven't played as Game of the Year. But yeah, thanks for responding there, Ivan. But I kind of just teased them there here just a moment ago. Eric, let's get to our next submission for a Game of the Year.
Hey guys, it's Retro AV Rewind. I'm Bridget Rules.
And I'm Vintage Macaroni.
My pick for best game this year, it's kind of a tie between Little Kitty Big City and Thank Goodness You're Here. Little Kitty Big City is really cute. You gotta find crows and give them bottle caps for cute hats. But Thank Goodness You're Here, like you can finish the game in 3 hours. I haven't heard anyone talking about this game. But I feel like more people should be playing it. Matt Berry does some of the voices in it, and it's hilarious. At the end, there's like a song. It's beautiful. What about you, Vintage?
Mine is Metaphor ReFantasio. Previously to this, I was a huge Persona fan, and I love JRPGs. And Metaphor just takes everything that the Persona games did well, in my opinion, and amplified it. It has some of that formula, but it takes it to a fantasy setting. And what is cool about it, the art design, is that they incorporate some inspiration from real paintings to create the monsters in the game. And it's rich in storytelling. The animation sequences are just gorgeous. I like how the character arcs are in the game. Like, you have to form bonds with the characters, and just going through it, you just fall in love with the people that you are going on this epic quest with. I definitely feel like it's a callback to 90s JRPGs that I love, but it took the formula and really amplified it. Like, the fighting sequences are really good. The dungeon crawls are challenging at times, but overall, Metaphor, it's just a fantastic game, especially if you like JRPGs. And even if you don't, I think there's something for everyone in this game. I can see why it was nominated for Game of the Year, and it's definitely on my list.
Yeah, that's why I was so confused, because they also answered on Instagram. I was like, wait a minute, I'm about to play their clip. Let me not read those out loud. But Metaphor, a game obviously I was familiar with because of the fantasy draft, but not something that I'm necessarily looking into in terms of playing. Never dove into the into that series here on my end as far as Persona. But obviously in terms, again, looking at stats, performed very, very well.
Yeah, leading up to the Game Awards, that was it was probably 1 and 2 neck and neck between Astrobot and then Metaphor. So not surprised to see that come up in one of the clips. And also, even though Ivan had never played it, not surprised that he mentioned it, because it's one of those games you hear about. Not my bag as far as gaming either. But from what I have seen, if that's a franchise that you're associated with and you're passionate about, I can see that happening. Honestly, had it have been a bigger franchise, maybe it would have won Game of the Year this year at the awards. I just think it's still a little bit too niche is not the word, but I still think it's not large enough to really have garnered enough support for that type of award, although it may have been much deserved.
Yeah, certainly. Let's get to our next two submissions here. You know what? Let's go ahead and jump to Corey. What did Corey have for Game of the Year?
Game of the Year. I've only played one new game this year, but it is really good. It's called Schim, Schim. It's a little indie game. Waiting for it for a while, saw a video advertising it like at the beginning of the year. Came out, bought it same weekend, and it is so much fun. It's charming. There's so many games out there. Like, I'll never forget, when the second DLC of Witcher 3 ended, I felt like I lost a friend. And there is an impact to that, but that was many, many, many hours of gameplay. But then you have Schim, which is just this fun little game that you can pick up. It is as complex as you want it to be. You can just breeze on through, or you can increase the complexity to try to get some of the harder to access stuff. But yeah, check out Schim.
This is definitely one I had to Google whenever I was editing up the clips. It's got 153 mostly positive reviews on Steam. Definitely looks like a pretty... I don't know. I just laid back game. I'm not really sure. I mean, artistically, it looks pretty cool, but I had no idea what this was when
Corey, what the hell is this? I'm watching it right now.
I think it's a game about. Here's the Steam description. Schim is a game about jumping from shadow to shadow in a relaxing and lively environment. This 3D platformer takes elements of light, shadow, and animation and adds them directly to the gameplay, delivering an experience that you will only find in Schim.
I mean, I'm looking at it. The more I'm looking at it, the more intrigued I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just had no idea what this was. I had to I think I also spelt it wrong when I first Googled it. And I was like, what is this game?
Oh, I definitely spelt it wrong when I was looking for it, because I was like, did this game even come out this year?
Yeah. July 2024. So.
Listen, you know what, Corey? I'll do this for you. Yeah, $14.99. I don't know about that. But I'll tell you this.
Eric was so ready to buy it, and then he saw, wait, $15. Hold on a second.
$15. Well, it did just come out this year. I'm going to put it in my wish list, and I'm going to keep an eye on this, Corey. I'm doing it literally right now as we speak. Because again, just like Bellatra, I need to know what the deal is. Mm-hmm. So if you see it as a future Game Room Where It Happens episode, you know you did a good thing.
I don't know about all that. But again, just like with music, it's nice to get a whole bunch of different suggestions and submissions from all over the gaming world. And Schim, I think, will definitely go down as one of those here with the end of the year awards.
He really said, I've only played one game this year.
At least he's played it, Ivan.
Yeah. Oh, poor Ivan.
Well, we got one more submission for Game of the Year, and Erica, as he returns, we had to make sure that our friendly neighborhood, one half of our friendly neighborhood gamers, was involved.
What is up, listeners of the Wait For It podcast? This is Andrew from Your Friendly Neighborhood Gamers, and I was invited by our wonderful hosts to submit a couple of awards for their end of the year episode. So, me being the host of a video game podcast, I have to talk about my game of the year. This year was a little bit different for me, as I played a lot of stuff in my backlog, but also it was different in the way that Shadow of the Erdtree came out, and there was a lot of debate about whether or not an expansion should be eligible for Game of the Year. For my own personal list, on my show, I excluded it and just gave it a major shout out, but I did want to mention it here because it was super high quality and one of the best things that I played this year. My overall game of the year is a game called Lords of the Fallen, which actually came out last year, and it's another Souls-like game with a really interesting mechanic where there are two worlds persisting at the same time, and you can kind of travel back between them. One of them is more ethereal and dark, and one of them is like the actual real world where most of the actual game takes place. Outside of that, it's just got a really cool aesthetic, a really fun magic system that's probably one of the best looking magic systems in a Souls-like that I've ever seen. It's got a lot of really cool build variety, and it's got interesting lore. Everything that you want from a game like this. Not only did I play it for the first time this year, but it also got some major updates this year where they actually changed the name of the game to like Lords of the Fallen 1.5 and then Lords of the Fallen 1.6. So you could kind of cheat and say that those big updates make it relevant again for this year, but then we're back to the Shadow of the Erdtree argument. So if I had to pick a game that came out this year that was my favorite, I would probably go with Stellar Blade. And no, not just for the reasons you think. Stellar Blade is a really solid action game with a super tight, super fun combat system, really grotesque and unique, interesting monster designs, and a dreary post-apocalyptic atmospheric world to explore. There's a ton of inspiration from Nier Automata in this game, so if you like that, this is definitely one to check out. I had a blast with it. I think it's a really good game that, unfortunately, its conversation this year was overshadowed by the design of the main character. Probably, arguably so, but if you can get past that, or if that's part of the reason why you want to check it out, there's actually a really solid, deep, fun video game underneath. So there you have it. My long, meandering answer for my game of the year for 2024. Thanks again for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks again, Andrew, for your submission again this year. Yeah, he brings up a very good point, because in terms of like his first selection, it kind of reminds me of like last year where I considered making Cyberpunk 2077 my game of the year, even though obviously it didn't release in 2023. But with the expansion and all the updates that had been made, I think it could be up for a debate, or up for, at least discussion. But Stellar Blade, not only... Obviously, Andrew's played quite a bit of it. Our buddy Jay, my co-host over at Touchdown Jaguars, plays the hell out of this game, loves the combat, and very heavily, a very, very big fan of that game as well. I played the demo, got absolutely annihilated, knew that it was not going to be something for me, similar to like a game like a Black Myth Wukong, where I was like very much intrigued, but I knew I just wouldn't be any good at that game and get more frustrated than I would have a good time. So we talked about this in the very beginning of the year in terms of, the Fantasy Critic Draft, where there just weren't a whole lot of games we were familiar with. And obviously gems showed up along the way that we'll talk about here in a moment, but there just weren't many of these mainstream games, especially the games that were nominated for Game of the Year, that really were appealing to me. Hence why, my selection was pretty easy, because I also didn't play a lot of newer games in 2024.
Yeah, I'm so curious what your Game of the Year award is, because, like, any of the big games that we've talked about so far, you're like, nope, no, not for me. I don't think so. Stellar Blade, just a game, I was probably more leaning towards potentially playing Black Myth Wukong, but it's just not something I'm going to immediately dive into, so it just didn't end up happening. But I've heard a lot of good things about the combat, and I would assume that's the biggest strength to the most casual gamers. How much you're getting story-wise out of a game like that, that might be into the conversation from a casual gamer standpoint if you're looking at buying the game. But again, I've heard combat is really what makes that game tick. So, yeah, surprised, but also not surprised.
Well, yeah. Well, those are all of our clips those are all of our submissions for clips for a Game of the Year. So, Eric, I'll go ahead and go first. I won't leave you in suspense for very long, because once again, like I said, there weren't really a whole lot of newer games that I played. I think 2025 will definitely be a lot more different in terms of like the major titles that are going to be releasing. Honorable mention, I will say Marvel Rivals. We've been playing the hell out of it. If you want to know a little bit more about our experience with Marvel Rivals, check our Game Room episode for December. Very, very much enjoying it, but hasn't been out long enough, and we're, it's still up in the air if that's going to be a long-term thing for us. As frustrating as it has been, there is no game that I played more in 2024, that I am still playing in 2024, than College Football 25. And it is as we spoke about in our episode, it is riddled with issues, and there are so many things they can do to make the game better, but the general gameplay loop has me hooked. I've got over like 200, 300 hours in that game because I can just go in, rebuild another team, start over, and I am not sick of it. I am sick of some of the gameplay stuff, but in terms of the game at its core and how it's designed, and obviously not having a college football game for so long plays into this as well. And I didn't get Madden this year or 2K, so both of those games fell short, Madden as it usually does. So this has been my primary sports game where I sit back here either in my game room or here in my office, and I'll put on a movie or a podcast, and I'll put on College Football 25. So really it was a pretty simple selection for me because I really didn't play much else outside of those two games, and then we throw Fortnite and Rocket League in there every once in a while as well.
Yeah, not surprised that that's your pick. Surprised that that is somebody's game of the year. It is a game I also put a lot of hours in, though. So, I totally understand it from that perspective. I just think that a lot of games came out this year, whether you played them or not, that, kind of come to mind first. And one of those games I'm going to mention as an honorable mention only because I have not beat it. And I still have a lot of hours to sink into it, and that is Astrobot. It is clear game of the year for me. And I think it falls under the same routine of a lot of these games where it's like, I don't know how that game could be game of the year. Well, you just haven't played it. You just haven't. And you played Astro's Playroom for a couple minutes when it was on your PS5 for free, and you didn't really experience it. And that's just what it is. It just is what it is, because Astrobot is the most fun I've had playing with the PlayStation 5 controller. Astro's Playroom is the most fun I've had playing with that controller. And I think the aesthetic of the game, all of that stuff, I know platforming's not your thing, but it's something for all ages that people can enjoy, and it's clear-cut just based off of what I've played, what I've seen, and the fact that it did win Game of the Year at the awards. That would be the real winner, but I'm not going to pick it and just kind of pick it just because I haven't beat it. My Game of the Year, like last year, is going to be based off of the game I have played the most, or one of the games I've played the most and had the most fun with. And that was clear-cut, Helldivers 2. I enjoyed the hell out of Helldivers 2. It was so much fun. Almost 100 hours sunk into that game. And talk about gameplay loops. That gameplay loop was a ton of fun, getting to play with other people, whether it was a group of people or, like we've talked about several times on the show, I was just jumping into lobbies, which I do not do, just so I could play that game. Unfortunately, you can only do that so much. A lot of things, well known, happen with Helldivers specifically because of Sony. And after that, the game just kind of lost its allure. I also think that a move to Xbox is something that is really needed to revitalize the game a little bit, but it still has a healthy player count. It's introduced a new group that you fight against in the Illuminant. That has definitely made me want to jump back in, but ultimately, I need more people to play with. So not only is Helldivers 2 my game of the year, for those reasons, this is also a call to action. If you play Helldivers 2, I need some people to play with me, because Phil will never reinstall that game, nor the other people I originally played with. And that's a big part of playing it. You really want to play it with people that you have fun with. And when that was happening, I had the most fun this year.
Yeah, I think if that had stayed in rotation, that would have been a pretty easy pick. But yeah, I just got a little sick of the gameplay loop. It was hard to get, three people on, or a third person on, I guess is what I will say. And unlike you, I had no desire to jump into a lobby with a random person here at my age. I just did not want to do it. But yeah, a few missteps along the way. I have seen the clips of the new stuff. Obviously, the vehicles, the new locations, those all look fun. But things that I'll enjoy from afar. Because, yeah, I don't really have any interest to jump back into it, especially with the games we have in rotation now. But like we said about Marvel Rivals, I'm still playing Fortnite. They continue to innovate, and I know people like to shit on Fortnite and joke about it, but they continue to innovate that game, add new modes, and it's essentially, what Roblox is doing. So between those two games, they got a lot of things covered, and they continue to evolve and grow. So shout out to them for sure. But Eric, I just downloaded Dinosaur Fossil Hunter, and I'm not going to have time to play Helldivers 2.
I'm pretty sure you don't like that game.
No, that's Prehistoric Planet. You're thinking of Prehistoric Planet. Dinosaur Fossil Hunter is when I actually go and dig up dinosaur bones. So once I open up my museum, I will do a full tour on Twitch.
Just thank God we had a lot of clips for this category, because it would just be me.
So, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to our next category here as we get into our final three, probably our biggest three that we cover every year, and we're going to jump into Best Animated Picture. Eric, we actually only had one submission for this, so luckily it's a good thing that Corey did do every single category, because this is the only one we got for Best Animated Picture. So let's see where Corey went. Based off of his earlier submission, we probably know where he went for Best Animated Picture.
Best Animated Picture? Yeah, this one wins by default because I looked at all of the 2024 releases and realized the only animated film that I have seen is Ultraman Rising. But it is a good movie. I'm a very big fan of getting different cultures. Like, how do you get someone into Ultraman? It's been running since the 60s. There are like hundreds of Ultramen. They do like a new series every year, at least one, if not two. And they've been doing that for over a decade. And Ultraman Rising is really good for the American market. It's a great way to kind of induct people into this amazing world that is daunting when you look at it. It's a lot to get into, but Ultraman Rising, really, really solid movie.
Yeah, second time Ultraman Rising has come up here in this episode, and if you guys want an idea of where that landed in terms of where we ranked our films overall in 2024, make sure, again, you check out our social media pages. You'll be able to find that here in the coming weeks. But yeah, Ultraman Rising, not a surprising pick at all from Corey.
If it wasn't for the winner of this category, Ultraman Rising would have taken it on my list. I love this movie. I've watched it multiple times, and I've had an absolute blast with it. So I second that. As a newcomer to the franchise, I vibed with this movie all the way. A couple honorable mentions I'll throw out there. Inside Out 2. I mean, Return Back to Form. Did they need to make a second one? No. Was it worth it? Yeah, I would say with the anxiety character and the storyline that they did. An argument can be made for sure for that. There was also Look Back, which is based off of the manga by Tetsuki Fujimoto, the creator of Chainsaw Man. And that was an hour of just pure joy, adrenaline, sadness, laughter, tears, happiness. It's a whole bunch of stuff that you're feeling within 60 minutes. So I highly recommend checking that out. And then last but not least, Flow is a film that I will shout out. Just, it's a very unique style that was really presented with a bunch of animals. It's a no dialogue movie. So visually it has to be appealing. And I gotta say, it is. So those are my honorable mentions, Phil. Do you want to go over yours before we go over our winners? I feel like I'm just drawing out the inevitable because it's gotta be the same.
Yeah, I have not yet seen Flow. I will see it by the time we do our Letterboxd review. I also plan on seeing the film you just... God, why am I blanking on the one you just mentioned from the creator of Chainsaw Man? Look Back?
Look Back.
Yeah, I'll also be watching that here very shortly. Didn't watch Kung Fu Panda 4. Can't imagine it would have ended up in this conversation, as people have just forgotten that movie came out. I will say I do want to see the new Wallace and Gromit movie. They just continue to put out really solid films, and people really, really enjoy them and have a good time. But yeah, Eric, I'm fairly certain we landed in the same place in terms of Best Animated Picture. So if you would like to do the honors.
Yeah, and then maybe before we go forward, we'll kind of go to the worst. I know we haven't done too much of that in the last couple categories. There's a couple here I definitely want to bitch and moan about. So we'll make this one quick because this may not be the first time. This may not be the last time we talk about this film. The Wild Robot is my animated picture. I know it's yours. It is for me, damn near perfect film. I cannot wait to watch it a second time, but upon first watch, this is one of my favorite animated films I've watched in the last 10 years that isn't called Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's extremely high
There has to be
praise.
some sort of wait for a podcast bingo where we bring up or some sort of drinking game where we bring up Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Listen, it is not a joke. Puss in Boots is 100%.
We're gonna need a moment here.
On a tangent.
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish for any new listeners.
Listen, it's not only top 10 animated films. It's in my top 10 movies all time. I'm just gonna tell you right now.
It's in mine too.
I love that movie. The Wild Robot, I think upon multiple rewatches, could it get to a 5 out of 5? I don't give those out lightly. It's very, very possible. So I say that with the caveat that I could still love it more. I don't see me loving this movie less. It's just so beautiful. It's very much on the surface. It looks like DreamWorks' attempt at making an Iron Giant clone and, just trying to make some money out of that. That's not what this is. It's a very, very good story, a strong story with strong characters, strong animation. Very, very good film. And Phil, I'll let you kind of chime in here because, again, I think we fell in the same place, and there's just so much to praise about this film.
Yeah, I'll say it. I mentioned this actually in the 2025 Foresight episode. DreamWorks is lapping Disney right now in terms of the animation game between Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and now this. You mentioned The Bad Guys, which is a movie I have not seen, but also really, really solid. Is Mitchell's and the Machines DreamWorks? Or am I making that up?
That's Sony.
It's Sony. Okay. The point is, there are much better animation studios out there. Than
Sony,
what other people.
Spider-Verse, Mitchell vs. Machines.
Nimona. Yeah. We talked about that.
Yeah.
I talked about that movie last year. One of my favorites. But yeah, The Wild Robot is absolutely fantastic. It is the only movie, Eric, this year that I have given a 5. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I cannot wait, like you said, to watch it again. The cast is incredible. Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Stephanie Sue, Ving Rhames, Mark Hamill, just a rogues gallery of incredible talent. And it is a beautiful film. And if you have not watched it yet, you're done yourself a disservice. So if they, definitely watch it at home. But if they re-release this thing in theaters, please do yourself a favor and watch this on the biggest screen possible. Because it is outstanding. I got the waterworks going, and I love it. So we'll see if it comes up again here at the end of this episode, Eric. But really, really good. I had I was not surprised that we landed here for Best Animated Picture. But yeah, let's talk about some stinkers. Do we want to just talk about Best Animated Picture, or do we want to go over them just kind of in general before we get to our two primary categories?
yeah, we could quickly rattle them off. I think some of them are going to be the same for us. The other animated films that I watched here, I'm going to just go down the list from what's highest on my list to lowest. I didn't hate this movie. But Transformers 1 I thought was very bland. I don't know what you guys are talking about when you recommended this movie. You're a big Transformers fan. We got it. Because I don't think this movie is somewhat lifeless when it comes to the animation. And when it comes to the voice acting and the story, I also think those are fairly subpar overall. There are shining bright spots. But yeah, no, nothing special with Transformers 1. Moana 2, solid. It's a Disney film. Phil's going to disagree, and I do want him to say his part in it because he does have a point, but I thought it was all right. I was in a good mood when I walked into the theater, so I still haven't let that go. Orion in the Dark, animation-wise, was pretty decent, but story-wise is really where it falters. My Hero Academia, You're Next. Not much to say there. If you love My Hero, that's your thing. But it all is going to lead to my second to last film on my actual Letterboxd list. Out of the 41 films I've seen, Despicable Me 4 sucked. Despicable Me 4.
Despicable Me 4.
I did. My son wanted to watch it one day, and I put it on.
I was like, what could this possibly be?
This movie is ass.
I can't believe that series is still trucking.
We gotta stop. We gotta stop. Let the Minions do their thing. This movie no longer has any heart. And to be completely honest with you, it doesn't look any better than any of the other films. So by default, it's like the worst animated film I saw. Really mainly for plot. It's not a badly looking animated film, but it's just, I'm not entertained anymore. I'm just not watching them. So yeah, I hated that movie.
But boy. one more sad,
Papoy.
one more sad Papoy for the road. Yeah, that's the other side of this in terms of other studios. Like they find something that works really well, and then they drive it into the ground. Why is there a Minions movie? Why did we need Groot's origin story? You know what I mean? And it's funny that you brought this up because just earlier today, a clip of Jason Segel talking about his character in the first Despicable Me, the villain. What was his name? The name of Vector, who's still the best villain.
Oh yeah,
Curse you, tiny toilet. Talking about his experience with Despicable Me 1, and just going back to how we felt about those characters back then and where we are now is a real bummer. But no, my lowest rated animated film of the year is Moana 2. I went into that thing with very low expectations, and it somehow was even worse. I didn't enjoy any of the songs. The animation was definitely not as good. None of the new characters, I didn't care about any of them. And it was, in terms of plot, you could tell that it was supposed to be some TV show that no one was ever going to watch because it was just terrible. They needed to recoup their money, and I guess that's what they're doing because it's making bank, unfortunately. So they're going to do this again. They're not going to learn their lesson because, you know what, the kids love it, and ultimately that's what matters the most. But I just choose to say that this one exists in some VHS tape somewhere. It isn't actually canon, such as Jafar, or such as Aladdin 3, Jafar may need glasses. So something like that. That's where Moana 2.
No. No, sir. Aladdin 3 is a fucking King of Thieves. Are you kidding me?
Oh, that was a Family Guy joke. I have no idea. I didn't no idea that there was an Aladdin 3.
The disrespect. No. Aladdin, King of Thieves, future late to the party episode.
I'm
just
not
to rectify
watching
this.
Aladdin 3.
That's crazy.
I'm not going to watch
Crazy.
Aladdin 3. I'm not going to watch it straight to VHS Disney movie.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Moana 2, worst movie, but still making money. Can I get a Chihoo?
I will kill myself
Little
right
Chihoo?
here in the middle of
Can
the
I get
episode.
one?
Right
No?
here in the
Okay.
episode.
All right.
I will
Well,
end
anyway,
it right now.
maybe we should move on.
I will take Maui's hook, hang it from the ceiling, and dangle from it.
Stop. Let's move on. It's okay.
Awful. Does If count as an animated movie? Because that sucked too.
Yeah, I don't think so. I had no desire to watch it.
Yeah.
I had as much of a desire to watch that as Harold and the Purple Crayon with Zachary Levi.
Yeah, no. Well, no one wants to see Zachary Levi at all in 2024. There was also a movie, an animated film that I had circled, but I probably was never going to watch. It was something about a unicorn. It was also another Netflix movie. But
oh yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I'm not going to spend the time to look.
Yeah,
it
I
up.
mean, here you go, Thelma the Unicorn. Yeah, probably.
You didn't have to do that.
Well, it was just right here. So, but yeah, that was obviously one of the worst. I don't really have anything in terms of video games. Again, we didn't really play. We didn't play the really bad ones. I did play a very early alpha version of what's that shitty Pirates game that came out in 2024.
Oh, Skull and Bones.
That was an early alpha build that I played, and it was terrible then. It's terrible now. I guess the game we had the least fun playing was Sea of Thieves, probably. That's not a 2024 game.
Yeah.
Did not have a good time. But yeah, we obviously didn't play Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Star Wars Outlaws, I'm sure, would have fallen very flat if we had played that. But yeah,
were there any IG submissions for this one?
For worst? Or you mean
no, for just animated?
Oh no, because I made the mistake and only asked for best picture, so I didn't do an animated category specifically. So that is my bad. And then best TV show. Worst TV show. That's tough because we're not gonna spend time watching a bad television show. It's not like a movie where I can be I'll throw on something for an hour and a half. I know it's gonna be bad, but I can also do something else at the same time. I'm not gonna watch multiple episodes of a bad
Imagine
TV
finishing
show.
a bad TV show.
Yeah, so-
We didn't do. Since we're going backwards before getting to our next category, we didn't really talk about worst music artists or songs, but I think that easily went to Katy Perry and JoJo Siwa. So I feel like those are pretty. I think it's Karma's a bitch. Yeah. Fucking
we didn't do
ass
Don't
song.
Be a Dick, but you could probably do JoJo Siwa.
Just JoJo Siwa.
Or we give it to
at
Elon
Epcot.
for the 5th year in a row.
We can't keep doing this. He can't keep getting away
having a
with
good
this.
day, and then you see a Cybertruck.
All right, well, we've gotten off the rails, and I think that's what happens after almost an hour and a half. But we got two more
Yeah.
categories, probably our biggest two.
Yep.
Phil, I'm curious if we're going to align on this next one, since you've only watched like 2 anime this year.
You're so annoying. You're so
It was just
annoying.
lobbed up there for me. Sorry.
It wasn't. Well, we also have quite a few submissions here, so shout out to our friends for giving us
there
their
we go.
picks for Anime of the Year. And let's, you know what, why don't we throw it to Corey first to see what he had to say.
Now, best anime. This is another rough choice. There's so much. But I really have to go with my heart on this one. It's the Ranma 1/2 remake. I love Rumiko Takahashi's work. Inuyasha is surprisingly, for being a show that I kind of shat on as a kid, that holds up. And I mean, Ranma 1/2, look, it's already done. It's over. We know where it's going. The animation is phenomenal. They keep that pure, that wholesome 80s style that I love so much in animation. And they flip it on its head with like that little bit of modernity. Obviously the lines are crisp, the colors are even more vibrant than ever before, and then when people get into a hardcore fight, it goes into like JoJo mode. Yeah, Ranma 1/2 has got to take it. Dan is so close of a second though, and yeah, Dragon Ball Daima's there. It's got to do something. We got to go somewhere. Toriyama, come on, man.
So yeah, Ranma 1/2 remake, not something that I was familiar with. In terms of like art style, looks very familiar. Something that looks very familiar to like a classic anime, which remake implies that's what it was. So Eric, is this something that came across your watch list at any point?
It did. This is very much in Ivan's bag. That's probably why it seems familiar. You've definitely seen, I believe, some art in regards to this from him, and great art, by the way. Check out Ivan Patch. But that being said, yeah, no, this is one of those. I feel like this year, Adam Moore, I have so many anime that are on my watch list that I didn't get to because I put my focus towards film towards the end of the year, really, because Phil was trying to watch 50 films and I felt like I needed to catch up, but I won't watch bad movies, so I felt extra pressure. And I have a couple here that I'll mention before my pick, but that was one of them for sure. Lower on my list, but still there as far as what's in my queue.
Definitely. Well, let's get to our next clip here, and let's bring back a duo.
Hey guys, it's us, Retro AV Rewind. I'm Bridget Rules.
And I'm Vintage Macaroni.
And our picks for Best Anime of 2024, mine personally is Dawn to Dawn. It's very fun. It's teenage romance, occult, aliens, yokai. There's action and magic. It's super fun. And literally everyone I've spoken to is like, have you seen this yet? So I feel like it's definitely one of the best of this year. What about you, Vintage?
For my best pick of 2024, I have to go with Delicious in Dungeon. To me, it's one of the most delightful animes of 2024. It has a lot of heart to it. It has quirky storytelling and characters you can really identify with. There's some breathtaking visuals to it as well. And it's really funny. The slice of life aspect of it really makes it feel cozy. And I love how they can take monster slaying and make it look delicious, where I want to recreate some of these recipes. It's just cozy. It feels good. And that's my pick for 2024.
Yeah, Delicious in Dungeon is on every single Best Anime of 2024 list. Eric, did you watch this? I never heard you really talk about it, but I also could have not been paying attention.
Again, yes. I did watch this. Yeah. My son loves this show. He ended up continuing it more, so I watched it casually with him, but I was very disengaged. I would say I like it conceptually, and I think if you're into like D&D, food, all those things that the show has to offer, I can understand why you like it. it just didn't vibe with me as far as a episode to episode watch. I also had a lot of other things I wanted to try to watch, and I ended up prioritizing them over the show. So maybe if I give it a real fair shot, maybe I'd feel differently. I'm going to mention another show in my honorable mentions. I'm going to give another shot after watching only the first episode. But Delicious in Dungeon, I watched like a solid 6 to 7 episodes, and I was like, this is fun. We're having a good time. I don't know that this is the anime for me right now. So if I'm ever wanting to just kind of stroll along on this journey with these characters in this dungeon, I can do that. But I think at the time I watched it, it just wasn't the right time for me. But I understand it's a great show for many people based off of the story, what it's about, the vibes, all of that jazz. The animation, it looks good. So yeah, I could understand why that's on your top list if you have it there.
Yeah, this has been in my queue. The reason that I looked into it, obviously like some of the slice of life and food stuff in terms of anime I'm not as familiar with, but it reminded me in terms of aesthetically, it looks like Legend of Vox Machina. Not the animation style, but like what's going on. You mentioned D&D. Eric, does this, like you said, obviously you're not saying it's bad, just didn't vibe with it. Does this kind of like remind you of like how Bocchi the Rock was at the top of like a lot of best anime, like 2022 or whatever that was?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, people were hyping up Bocchi the Rock, and it was like, it was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of Bocchi the Rock, but I was like...
Yeah, it was a fun story.
Best anime of 2022?
Best anime? Oh, great.
Really good.
It is one that I think you would enjoy, Phil, and you would be able to appreciate.
All over the conventions, so...
Yeah, but again, if you're going to try to invest episode by episode and really... Again, I'm like honing in on shows that I watch. Maybe there just wasn't enough, to give a food analogy, there wasn't enough meat on the bone for me to chew on.
Yeah, understandable. I do want to pivot to one of our Instagram answers once again from Justin. Thank you so much, Justin, who gave the answer of the Bleach, the 1,000-year Blood War, which I believe returned in 2024, if I remember correctly. So, Eric, Bleach, listen, you started your One Piece journey. Come on.
No, that's another. No. So that's another reason. It's another reason why I didn't get to several of my honorable mentions here. The Apothecary Diaries, The Elusive Samurai, Wisteria Wand and Sword. I heard a lot of good stuff about. That was something that was on my radar. And the show I watched an episode of that I'm gonna go back to, because this is probably anime of the year for most of you, was Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. I only watched the first episode, a little bit of a drag. I hear it takes some time to get into the show, but once you're in it, you're in it. And I do want to give it a real shot because I hear it's amazing. And I really enjoyed shows like Mushoku Tensei. I enjoyed a lot of those type of like fantastical shows, and I like getting into them. The Ancient Mage's Bride, another one there kind of in the same vein. So I want to check that out. Definitely want to. Those are more shows that I would like to check out from this year alone than I would ever want to do going back to Bleach.
Yeah, I mentioned this before, and this was when it was like difficult to find the original episodes of Bleach. I went through like watching, how like YouTube would upload them in segments, so that's how I was watching Bleach. I was like, well, let me make this like my, classic big 3, big 4 anime, and then I just fell off, and it's probably not something that I'm going to revisit. I have Bleach Light in Blue Exorcist, and that's close enough for me.
Yeah, and then also, like, I know it's been getting a lot of shit, but Blue Lock season 2,
yeah,
I haven't even started yet. So there are shows that like I really want to watch, and I'm getting close to 200 episodes in One Piece, and I'd like to very much speed up the pace in which we're watching it. So yeah, I'm having to put some things on the back burner for that. But hey, One Piece update, having a hell of a time. Oh my god, I'm enjoying it.
Wherever you say, pal. Let's move into our next submission here, because you mentioned one of this anime actually just a moment ago. So let's get to our next submission.
Hey guys, this is Ivan Patch. Have my anime of the year. Well, sort of. I know what I want to choose, but there's a couple honorable mentions. Okay, we had Delicious in Dungeon this year, and then of course there's Dandadan, and I'm a big fan of Ranma, so I like struggle between these three. But then I realized there's one that really clicked with me that I love. I love the art. I love like the style. The storytelling is great, even with like it's a historical accuracy, which could have been like super dramatic and like cry-worthy and super drama all the time. They kept it kind of light at the same time. It's The Elusive Samurai. I love that show. It's only been 12 episodes, and I feel like no one's talked about it, but it's definitely like anime of the year for me. I kept going back and forth. I think it's done by Cloverworks, if I remember correctly, who does like Spy Family and Windbreaker. But yeah, definitely anime of the year for me. And I'm sorry for those who are going to be like, why didn't you say Delicious in Dungeon? Are you crazy? Or Dandadan? Well, I fought between all of those, okay? So yeah, that's my anime of the year.
Yeah, I very much have enjoying Elusive Samurai. I've only watched about 6 episodes, but when Ivan told me it was from the creator, I believe, of Assassination Classroom, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to check that out. You probably should have started there. It's also very funny. When that guy, and I think the second or third episode, his uncle, is beating the shit out of those children, I was like, what the hell is this show? I was like, okay, I'm in.
Well, so really the only reason I haven't watched it is because I didn't know if Grayson can watch it. So that's the real question.
Yeah,
if my son can watch it.
I mean, you exposed him to a lot of violent shit in 2024.
He watched little children die in Arcane. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. So
yeah, I think we're good. Also by Cloverworks, who has a ton of great history in animation. So one that I mentioned was on my watch list. I'm sure Ivan's going to be mad I still haven't checked it out. But yeah, glad to hear you have, because I definitely wanted to get another opinion on it. Maybe that'll put it higher on my priority list.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. He mentioned he's mentioned Windbreaker, which I very much enjoyed in the beginning, and then the last few episodes of the season kind of fell off. I was in terms of the story beats weren't as interesting to me. I'm still gonna pick it up when season 2 comes in 2025, but it did fall off a little bit there towards the end. But Eric, we have one more submission for anime of the year. Let's get to this one.
All right, this is Jay, and this is my take on Best Anime 2024. Hands down, no questions asked, Solo Leveling. Starts out with the weakest hunter in the entire world. You know, he's like a power of 10, and the lowest you're supposed to get is 70. You know what I mean? But, you know, he gets put in a situation where it's literally life and death. People are dying next to him, and it's not that he has some super awesome power right out the gate, that he has some hidden talent. He just doesn't give up, and he finds a way to make it through, ends up sacrificing himself to save everyone else. From there, he just literally grinds every single day, watching him progress, watching his character development. I don't know, man, shit just spoke to me, and the season ender, like, oh God, that Arise. Like, come on, man. You can't beat that. Yeah, that's my take on Best Anime.
Shout out to our local urban weirdo, Jay, who we're very excited to, I'm sure, work with more in 2025 and see him. And you know what, Eric, we are just overdue for a Nakama night out with Jay. So maybe we should do that before school starts back up again for our kids, because we need to catch up with our buddy there. But yeah, Solo Leveling. So let's jump into our selections here, Eric. You had mentioned some honorable mentions, also some shows that you want to pick up. Solo Leveling, this was a really tough decision for me, because even though, obviously in terms of volume, I watch a lot less anime and a lot more films for you. So it's like flip-flop for us. So when I watch the anime that I want to watch, I'm very particular about that. And Solo Leveling, I have not watched since it had come out. And I have a feeling that maybe if that had happened, that probably would have influenced my decision a little bit more. I will put it as an honorable mention right now. And then, even though I'm wearing the shirt, Dandadan is an honorable mention, despite it being outstanding. Yeah, it's already been brought up here a couple of times, but that has obviously been the show that is, between that and the opener, has just taken the world by storm, and it is fantastic. I've enjoyed every single moment of it. Very awkwardly read the manga in the middle of a Panera Bread on like a Tuesday. And I was like, well,
full spread.
I need to not do this in public.
Not the full spread you were expecting at Panera.
No, not at all. But enjoying the hell out of it. Cannot wait to see what comes next and continue reading it, because I did jump into that Shonen Jump pool here in 2024. But those are my 2 honorable mentions. What do you have on your list?
Yeah, my honorable mentions are Solo Leveling as well. Jay, great choice. It was very, very close for both of us. The English dub, especially for the main actor, I think it was Alex Lee. Fantastic job. It's also great in sub, of course, but anytime you could shout out a good dub performance, I love to do that. Kaiju number 8, also a honorable mention. If it wasn't for my best anime, it'd probably be Kaiju number 8 and then Solo Leveling after that. It was interesting where they chose to end season 1 of Kaiju number 8. That was kind of maybe my biggest criticism of it, but come on now. That AI opening, that terrible looking AI opening, but a good song, and then ending it with Nobody from One Republic, like jamming out at the end of each episode. And there was a couple surprises and twists that I know people enjoyed. Animation-wise, I enjoyed it. So very, very hard decisions being made here, but those are my 2 honorable mentions.
I also wanted to mention before I forget, in The Elusive Samurai, one of the main characters is voiced by Rico Fajardo. So give you another reason to check that out. Our guy. But yeah, you set it up there. Kaiju number 8 is my anime of the year. It's fucking kaiju, man. Like it was, like you said, it was made for me, and the characters are funny. The story has been really solid. I also too was a little thrown off by where it had ended. This is something that I also have been reading, although I am now ahead in the anime than where I was in the manga. But yeah, it's Kaiju number 8 for me. I have also watched that more recently than Solo Leveling. So like I said, if I were to watch those 2 back to back, who knows what my decision would have been. But it was very close. And honestly, with those ones that we mentioned, like there's not necessarily a wrong choice either with any of those. But yeah, Kaiju number 8 for me.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think my exact words to you were, it's kaiju, Phil. You have to like it. They made this anime for you. It's about this middle-aged man who is just, he's got one last shot. If this didn't speak to you, nothing was. But speaking of one of your honorable mentions, yeah, it's Dandadan for me. Not only has the best opening by Creepy Nuts, which is the second great opening they've done here recently, talking about Mashal, another show that I got into in season 2. It didn't finish, but love that opening as well. Dandadan is just so much fun, and Jay's talked about in Solo Leveling something spoke to him. What spoke to me the most about Dandadan was it's essentially a mix of what I love about a show like Kaguya-sama, Love is War, and Mob Psycho 100. 2 shows that are in my top 5 anime of all time. So this already had the recipe in motion, and between what I've watched from the anime and now what I'm reading ahead in the manga, I just love everything about this. Yes, I understand that first episode's hard to get through if you don't really know what it's about. There are some moments where you're like, what the fuck? Why did we need that? But I'm going to be honest with you, this is just really well done. From a romance element, I think it's tasteful in a lot of ways where some of those scenes aren't. Overall, I think it is. And I really, really just would recommend that you give it some time to really grow on you, because this is one of my favorite genres, too, of my favorite genres when it comes to anime so far. If they do it right, the supernatural and romance, rom-com, I absolutely love that shit. I eat that up when it comes to anime. And yeah, it's my anime of the year. Maybe not close at all, but that also may be recency bias. So gonna give respect to the other 2 and say those were my clear top 3. Dandadan taking the win here, though.
Yeah, everything you said, in when I had found out that it was gonna have the paranormal stuff and the aliens and all that kind of shit, I was like, oh, we might be onto something. Kaiju and ghosts and all that stuff came out this year, and a Solo Leveling, which as far as like some of the monster designs reminds me a lot of like Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the day, so like all that stuff just kind of came together in 2024. It was a very, very good year. And if you would like to hear what Eric has to say in terms of 2025 anime, again, make sure you check out the Foresight episode coming out here in the next couple of weeks. But Eric, the time has come. As always, yeah. Once again, media has been waiting for this moment. We are going to make them wait a little bit longer because we'd like to talk about some of the worst films we've seen in 2024.
That's the way we got to do it.
We have to talk about some of the worst movies. Obviously, again, we're going to go through our entire list, and there's probably going to be movies added on to this. between now and when we do our Letterboxd review. I can't imagine I'm about to watch the worst movie of 2024 here in the next few days because I have already seen it. So
I mean, what are we talking like? Our least 5?
Yeah, let's do bottom 5.
Movies?
You want to do bottom 5? We'll give you a little taste, little sprinkle,
a little taste. We'll go over the full list. That's gonna be a long episode too.
We did that last year where we went through all, which was nuts.
God, how long was that episode?
It was so
I can't
long.
even remember.
So let's go through bottom 5. Eric, I've seen more movies, so why don't you go ahead and go first? I think I've seen the 5 worst movies of 2025.
No, your list is going to be way crazier than mine. Yeah, last year's episode 2.5 hours. I mean, we're creeping up on that.
So yeah,
and we did worst.
Yeah.
Best and worst for a lot of these. We did wholesome award. Don't be a dick. Yeah. I don't know how we did it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Corey's 20 clips didn't help. So we'll jump into. We love you, Corey.
Ivan
was
so
great.
Corey last year. Ivan submitted.
And then he also tried to get in on IG with a game he never even played. So my bottom 5 is somewhat clear up until the last spot. So I'll go with my worst movie of the year, which is easily Trap, M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. Such a bad movie. Again, in comparison to Phil's list, I understand why it's not at the bottom of yours, because you watch garbage-ass movies. So this is at the bottom of my list by default, but I gave it a 2 out of 5. I really hated this movie for a variety of reasons we'll get into on the Letterboxd recap episode. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, a movie I also hated, along with Despicable Me 4 and Beetlejuice. All sequel movies of big franchises that have nothing special to offer. If you love these franchises and you rated it higher than a 2.5 out of 5, which is what I gave it, okay, that's fine. But these are not 4 or 5 star movies, so the arguing's really not worth it. Those are my bottom 5. However, I want to make a quick little exception that 2 other movies that I didn't enjoy that could have been rated lower, I gave a little bit of a boost because I do appreciate the movies and understand I'm not the target audience. Those 2 movies were Monkey Man and I Saw the TV Glow. For much different reasons that I'll get into again on that future episode. Did not enjoy those movies, and had I not been able to just respect that I wasn't the audience for this, I probably could have ranked them a lot harsher and they probably would have gone further down on my list. But again, pre-aforementioned movies that I put on here, I again just did not enjoy. A Quiet Place Day 1 also in the mix there. Not a movie I enjoyed either. So a lot of 2.5s, but Trap with a 2 out of 5 at the bottom of my list, which is, I believe, Phil, where we're going to start with yours. Because again, there's got to be a lot of 1s in here, I'm assuming.
Yeah, there's some 1s. I've definitely got some 1s and lower. Actually, before we do that, I totally missed a submission earlier in terms of best TV show of the year, which is from Kate from Game of Thrones. She answered on Instagram. Want to make sure I go back. Agatha All Along was her choice. Agatha All Along was outstanding. Wouldn't put it in terms of like best TV shows of the year, but in terms of like just a show in general. But one of the shows I most enjoyed in 2024, if that makes sense. So a lot of really, really great performances. It's one of those MCU shows that people were like, do we really need this? And you can make the argument yes or no, but Ari Plaza was fantastic. The whole cast was very, very good. So I just wanted to make sure I went back to that. So sorry about that, Kate. But yeah, let's go to my bottom 5. I'll talk about some movies that hovered around there. Obviously, Moana 2, as I mentioned. The Beekeeper was terrible. It's like one of the movies that came out earlier in the year. If the Imaginary Friend movie, really, really bad. Upgraded, which is a rom-com that released on Amazon Prime. These are all movies that are hovering around my bottom 5. Just outside.
You're not even there yet, and I want to vomit.
Just outside of the bottom 5 is Joker. Folia Du, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's right outside of the top 5, or the bottom 5 for me. It's an absolutely horrible experience. We actually talked about it, me and Ivan, last night, and he said he wanted to, like, walk out of the theater. It is a terrible film. Thank God I was able to watch it on Max. I'm so glad we didn't go see this in theaters. Right now, I've seen 48 films. Number 44 is Argylle at a 1.5. Terrible film. I had so much faith in Matthew Vaughn, and he kicked me in the dick, so that was pretty bad. There are portions of this that are pretty solid. John Cena, pretty good. Not enough Dua Lipa, so that was a choice. But the twist was stupid. And it seems like they're trying to make a franchise out of this, and I'm just begging them, please, not to. The next one here, all these are ones or below. The number 45 film I have is Lift, which is a Netflix movie starring Kevin Hart. And for some reason, Kevin Hart is in his I want to be an action hero stage. And I don't know what the hell he's thinking or who is in his head telling him that he is an action star. You're not, Kev. If you don't want to necessarily do comedy all the time, that is totally fine. But action is not your genre. 46, we'll go with another Netflix movie, Atlas, which is the Jennifer Lopez, Simu Liu, Sterling K. Brown film. The best thing that came out of this was the press tour, where you can see that Sterling K. Brown absolutely detests Jennifer Lopez, and that is honestly more entertaining than anything that happened in the film. Number 47 is Madam Web, Adam 1 star. It was Madam Web. I don't really have too much that you can say about it that was positive outside of Celeste O'Connor, Sydney Sweeney, and Isabella Merced had some pretty cute chemistry, but outside of that, you guys know what happened with Madam Web. And up until recently, Eric, these were switched, but upon thinking about it, Borderlands is the worst movie of 2024. It is a lifeless, soulless, just embarrassing cash grab, starring people that could not give two shits about the source material, and they somehow made Jack Black not funny as Claptrap. Cate Blanchett, again, Kevin Hart showing up here again, Jamie Lee Curtis, Ariana Greenblatt, who I think has the best agent in Hollywood because she's everywhere, and just a terrible, terrible experience. The most damning review that I can give this film, I've told this to all my friends, my brother-in-law, Peter, laughs at everything. And he fell asleep in the climax of this movie and only laughed out loud one time in Borderlands. And that is the most damning negative review that I can give it. So that's my bottom 5. Again, I don't picture anything falling into that range here over the next 7 or 8 days of 2024. But that is where it was. That's where it's I've landed for me.
Yeah, no, and a lot of these movies probably not going to go over in that Letterboxd episode.
No.
This was your chance to really digest all of that. But no, Phil, those are awful movies. Again, why you would put yourself through that? No clue. Like, I know when I say I don't have time, like, I understand that, like, I could probably find, like, time here and there, but, like, you truly could have saved...
I saw 3 of these in theaters.
I mean,
saw Argyle, Madam Web, and Borderlands.
Just going over your list, there's a solid 24 hours of movies you could have maybe avoided and literally done anything else. So you really just don't have the excuse. You should have done so much better.
Well, we're going for 50 again in 2025. I'm not going to up it to 60. 50 is a nice number, I think, every single year. If we're talking about just movies as a whole in 2024, I've watched 73. So there's even more films that just aren't. What's the worst film? Hold on that list. It's still Borderlands.
Yeah. On your 2024 watch list,
just all movies in general. It's
literally your bottom 5 is the exact same.
It is. Yeah, I just checked. It's the same.
And then just to give you guys episodes we did this year, Lego Ninjago, Porco Rosso. Yeah. So sorry,
Knock
Briar.
at the Cabin. Yeah.
Bell, pretty low here. Yeah. So Hero. So a couple movies we did for the podcast.
Hero.
in your bottom.
Hero. I totally forgot about that movie.
In your bottom
what do you mean they got 'em?
Of movies overall that you watched this year. What do you mean they got them?
Yeah, Borderlands is the lowest review that you can give on Letterboxd. I gave it a half a star. There's nothing redeeming about that movie whatsoever. So
yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. Again, we're doing a whole Letterboxd episode, so we probably won't go top 5 for the actual award winner. So
no.
Phil, if it sounds like we still have a lot of clips.
We do. I have quite a few clips, and we have some Instagram submissions. Let's do that first. As far as Instagram submissions, let's bring up Kate first. Once again, Game of Groans. Love Lies Bleeding was her selection for Best Picture. Batsy, who we met through the not only the JPU but also here the Jacksonville Creators. Shout out to her. She has a couple of submissions here. Honora, Late Night with the Devil, Alien Romulus, and Wicked. We have my daughter Liz. She said The Wild Robot, so shout out to Liz. And then Justin, once again, with Deadpool and Wolverine as his selection. So there are our Instagram submissions. Thank you guys so much for that. But Eric, let's jump into our clips because we've got quite a few of them. I'm just going to go in order of how I have them placed here on Riverside.
All right, Best Picture. This is a dog shit of a year to do this. It's also a great year. It is a very, very hard decision to say this, but I really got to give it to Alien Romulus. And it's because of how much I like Godzilla X Kong. I love where Legendary is going. It feels like they're kind of finally finding their place in older American film, doing modern movies with this like older, specifically American feel to it. And because of that, I think that's why Alien Romulus takes this, is we're getting a modern old Alien movie. And like it's one of my favorite franchises, and one of my favorite creatures of all time is the Xenomorph. Alien Romulus, man, such a good movie, but GXK is definitely right on its tail. Yeah, thanks for inviting me onto this. It's very short. Phil, Eric, you boys are great. I love what you do. Just keep doing it, man. I loved seeing your stats breakdown of the year. It's really cool to see, not just Friends, but also like Jacksonville kind of getting out there on the map and doing some great things. So, thanks for repping Duval. You are one of the teams that we can count on. Just one of the very few teams that we can count on coming out of Jax. Thanks a lot, guys. Merry Christmas.
Why did you leave that in? We've been shitting on him the whole episode. Why did you do this? I've been set up. That was the nicest thing anyone said to us in the past 30 days. And Corey, thank you so much for your support and for your clips. I'm so appreciative.
Oh, God. Oh, Corey, what a guy. But, but Eric, Alien Romulus, this is a film that you did see in 2024. I did not, for obvious reasons. But, yeah, shout out to him for also bringing up Godzilla X Kong. Are we going to talk about that here in just a moment? We will see. But, no, Alien Romulus. I really hope not. Talk about that because, you did see that film here this year.
Yeah, it's in my top third of the 41 films that I saw. It's in the top third of this list. Right there on the edge, and it's a good film. I really, really enjoyed it. For someone who's not big into the franchise, I did give it a 3.5 out of 5, and I thought it was good. I could understand it's basically your modern day version of Alien. Haven't watched Alien freshly prior to Alien Romulus. I could see the parallels very clearly. I didn't like the use of bringing back a dead character in the way they did it. I felt it was a little distasteful, also not necessary. There are also just a little bit too many callbacks. And I understand I'm a Force Awakens lover for Star Wars, and that's all they did in that movie. But these were like kind of cringy. It didn't really work. And the movie kind of goes for it all in the third act, and I just think that third act got a little overhyped for what did end up happening. So there were a couple of little things here and there, but man, this movie was absolutely a vibe, and I was vibing with it. Am I gonna watch future Alien projects or other Alien projects I missed out on? Maybe, but this movie, prior to this movie, I wasn't interested at all. So that says something.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about in terms of some characters and returning that are no longer with us, of course. But again, as far as Aliens fans, heard a lot of positives around Romulus. So again, Corey, thank you for all of your clips here for the end of the year awards. God, Eric was so mean to you after all those nice things. It's so weird.
Dude, literally my heart was breaking the whole time.
Let's get into our next clip here. Let's see what their selection is for Best Picture.
About my second pick, and that's movie of the year, and that is an independent movie called Hundreds of Beavers. It can best be described as The Revenant meets Looney Tunes. Like, it is just insane. A nearly 2-hour-long black and white slapstick movie that was made right here in my home state of Wisconsin. It is probably the funniest movie I've seen in the last 10 years. I was crying laughing for, again, the nearly 2-hour long duration. It is a phenomenal artistic achievement done by some truly talented and funny artists. If you love comedy, if you love just supporting independent art, please go check out Hundreds of Beavers. I cannot recommend it enough. But thank you guys so much for the wonderful year. I cannot wait to see what 2025 has for us. I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.
So this is the most Eli selection I think that we've ever seen. For those of you that don't know Eli, whenever I looked into this movie, I was like, "What is happening here?" I don't even know if this is a movie that came out in 2024.
No, so I think it premiered at Wikipedia fact of the day. It premiered at Fantastic Fest on September 29th, 2002. It was self-distributed and received received a VOD on April of 2024.
Okay.
So I do think this technically does count as a 2024 movie, although it is tagged as 2022 when you search for it.
Yeah.
That being said,
97%.
Search for Hundreds of Beavers. Look at this image. That is our friend Eli.
That's Eli.
That is him as a person.
That is Eli. Well, remember, Eli and I also bond over the lighthouse. So this is also right up his alley.
To be mentioned, I have not seen Nosferatu as of the time of this recording. I have very high hopes for it, and I will likely be going on a Robert Eggers little trip of his filmography, so I will likely be watching The Lighthouse within the next 12 months.
So good. So good. But yeah, Eli, thank you so much for this submission. Again, another submission where we had never heard of this particular film. And again, 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is certainly not an accident. Eric, if you want to pull up the Letterboxd score, I do not. Actually, no, hold on. I can do it here. Let's see. Hundreds of Beavers. Let's see what we got. What are we rocking on Letterboxd? A 4.2. Okay.
Listen, late to the party.
All right, we might have to. Our buddy Caleb, also from the not Friendly Neighborhood Gamer days, but the Level Playing Field days, also has given this a 4. So
in the 19th century, a drunken Applejack salesman must go from zero to hero and become North America's greatest fur trapper by defeating hundreds of beavers.
No, I gotta watch this. Hold on.
Yeah, we gotta watch this.
Streaming.
We got to streaming. It's derailed the whole episode.
It really has. It's free on Tubi, which I'm never gonna do. Oh, Prime Video. Here we go. All right, I found it on Prime. All right, we're good. All right, Eli, we got you, buddy. All right, let's get to our next submission for Best Picture.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie, and again, I'm here to talk about my Best Picture of the year, which was a new one, Sonic 3, or Sonic the Hedgehog 3. My goodness, another one. Longtime fan of the Sonic franchise as a whole, big fan of the first 2 movies, but this one is, in my opinion, by far the best one. They do a great job portraying Shadow and his entire backstory, and actually bringing more of the actual Sonic lore back into the film. And of course, Jim Carrey is stellar as always. It's a very, very fun movie. It's a love letter to the fans, and I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of great movies this year, but Sonic 3 totally surpassed my expectations and was a super great time.
All right. Once again, shout out to Sophie, aka Soup Ninjaha, one of our fantastic cosplayer friends. But yeah, Eric, you have already seen this. I am seeing it on Christmas Day here in the next couple of days, so we haven't necessarily talked about it. I don't know what your score has been, but as I was recording with Sophie a little bit earlier today in preparation of this, she had nothing but great things to say about Sonic 3.
Yeah, I would agree that it's the best one to date. And it's in the top half of my films that I've seen this year. So it's in the upper half of films that I've seen. I actually need to record my review for this for social media, but it was a 3.5 out of 5. I think it's a good time. If you like the first 2 Sonic movies or you love this character, you're going to enjoy this film. It's just that simple. I would like to see them do some different things to make this movie more than what it is, but I think you could tell by Sophie's nominations for the award categories she's done a clip for. If you're very passionate about a franchise, that just bleeds through, and you could see that bleeding through the screen with this particular movie. You know, fans are going to love it, and honestly, if you're a fan of Sonic, I could see this being a much higher rated film, and for Sophie it was, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, she mentioned there is a ton of fan service in the film, so it sounds like a lot of Sonic fans are enjoying it, which is, again, great when it comes to that franchise in the future of maybe some other characters they can pair up with, which, again, as a teaser, we talked about over on our Foresight.
Give us what we want.
Our Foresight episode,
Or I will hurt
please.
the people you love. Give us what we want.
Is Triple H standing in the ring waiting for him to say his next line? All right, let's get to our next clip here for Best Picture. We got a few more.
All right, this is Jay, and this is my movie of the year. And I'm going to go ahead and throw out there. It's Borderlands. It was the greatest. Oh, let me stop lying. Borderlands fucking sucked. For me, my movie is It's What's Inside. And I really hope I'm saying the right exact name. It was that Netflix movie, but it's where they get an old friend that comes back, or they all get together, coming back for a wedding, and that one friend that everybody lost contact with comes back weird as shit and just has a machine that allows them to switch minds into each other's bodies. And, it kind of gives that, what would you do in somebody else's shoes if no one knew you were in their shoes? So you can do whatever the fuck you want, but they don't know exactly who's doing it. So it really brings out, people's, just the worst of them, because they feel they have no consequences. They can do whatever they want, get away with it. And, just the way it all ended. Oh man, chef's kiss. It was just, it caught me off guard. It was a good twist, and I'm pretty good about picking up on twists in movies. But just how, she played him. I don't want to give the whole thing away, but played him all the way through. I didn't see it coming. But yeah, that's hands down my movie. Good job, Netflix. Got another banger.
All right, once again, shout out to our urban weirdo friend Jay. It's What's Inside is a film that came out of nowhere for quite a few of us. It was very heavily lauded by one of my favorite social media, or one of my favorite content creators, which is Amanda the Jedi. I talk about her a lot over on YouTube. And Eric, this was a fantastic film. We'll see if we talk about this a little bit more here in just a moment. But yeah, great movie, and it is a shame that it came out on only Netflix.
That means a lot of people haven't watched it, and they probably should, because this was a top 10 film for both of us this year. And Phil, you don't normally go out of your way to rave about something, but this was one of those movies that you definitely did. I caught that, and I checked it out very, very quickly after you doing so, and I was pleasantly surprised. So yeah, no, definitely check out It's What's Inside. Absolutely a contender here for Best Picture, and it should be for those that have seen it. No surprise here.
100%. Let's get to we have three more. Let's bring back Botter.
So I'll start off with my favorite movie of the year, and that goes to Deadpool and Wolverine, which I think it's safe to say has been the best comic book movie of the year. I mean, you've got great on-screen chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I mean, I don't think anyone was surprised to see them get along so well and play off each other so well in their respective roles. We got over-the-top action. We had a great villain, a great story, some amazing cameos. And to quote our boy Remy LeBeau, aka Gambit, I think this movie made a name for itself, which isn't surprising, right? I mean, the Deadpool movies have all been fantastic, but I really felt like they swung big for Deadpool and Wolverine. And it was such a great, ending to the Fox Marvel universe, and so many years of good and mediocre, a lot more mediocre than good if we're being honest, but it was a great swan song to the Fox movies, and it was a great injection of much needed fun and comedy and bloody gore and violence and action into, our superhero ecosystem, especially into the MCU. So Deadpool and Wolverine, favorite movie of the year, easy pick right there. Anyways, thanks so much for letting me hop on Wait For It podcast. You guys are the best. Phil and Eric, love you guys. And once again, this is Botter from the Short Box Podcast saying Happy New Year to everybody. Peace.
Yeah, well, of course, our resident go-to when it comes to anything comic book. And here's the thing with Deadpool and Wolverine, Eric, because we did not dislike this movie. It is just the ultimate fan service film. And for so many people, that worked. And I think when we were talking about these two characters and you're bringing back Hugh Jackman, and you're talking about bringing him back, obviously, after Logan ended so perfectly, Speaking for myself, the expectations were extremely high, and they just did not reach those expectations in terms of an emotional and story level. In terms of just rating it and how much I had fun and I laughed and I enjoyed the cameos and all that stuff, it's excellent. But in terms of what I wanted out of these two characters finally getting together, specifically, just the actors themselves, it fell a little short, and I know that upset quite a few people when we told them that.
Again, if you love this movie, that's great. That is great. Botter saying, especially, with he runs a comic book, adjacent podcast, like that's something that he's obviously well into, he appreciates, and that's a genre that he really loves. And a lot of you have mentioned it. I think, Phil, that was one of our IG responses, if I'm correct, by Justin. I believe I saw he put that there in response to the best film. Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely. I just think this movie, while fun, just had a lot of flaws I couldn't overlook. And honestly, I think it's just an MCU thing. Like, it's the best thing the MCU has done recently, and I still didn't love it. That's ultimately what I felt walking out of it. And I really wanted to, guys. Really, really wanted to. I'll tell you, the more I've walked away from that movie, the less I have liked it. So maybe a rewatch is in order. My family has not seen it again, so I will be rewatching it here soon. Maybe before the Letterboxd review episode. So check that out, because where we placed it might change based off of a rewatch, at least for me.
Yeah, and to kind of give you guys an idea, like me, Eric, as well as our next clip submitter, we all gave this a 3. So it's not like we hated the movie, but like I just talked about, it was fine. So, but again, if it was one of your favorite films of the year, I 100% understand why that would be. But yeah, let's bring in our second to last clip here for Best Picture.
Hi guys, it's Feline, and I am submitting in my choice for Best Picture of the Year. Obviously, everyone knows that I truly, truly loved Wicked, and it is my favorite movie of the year. It is the movie that plays rent-free in my mind. It is the movie that I watched four times in theaters. So that is definitely my most loved movie of this year. But if I were to make a more elevated choice of the Best Picture, in my opinion, it would be The Substance. That movie is so tragic and really, truly takes a different look at what women have to go through in order to feel seen, in order to feel beautiful. And as a woman with my own body issues, just seeing it on a bigger screen and taking a horror aspect of it, which, as everyone knows, I am the horror girly. It was truly, truly fascinating, and the ending was crazy. It was campy. It just met all the horror elements that I wanted, and the two leading stars were amazing, and I really, really, really loved this film and recommend it to everybody.
So yeah, The Substance is on many best of 2024 lists, as well as Wicked for different reasons, like Philin just mentioned there. So as far as her selecting this film as her best picture, that did not surprise me, knowing what we know about Philin. But I know that The Substance is not a movie that I'm going to be able to sit through. But Eric, has it crossed, or is it in your queue to watch before the end of the year, or did you already check it out?
No, it is in my actually mentions of movies that I have not seen that are potential contenders that I've heard. And The Substance, me and Philin have actually talked about this, is a movie that I'm also interested in checking out. I've heard performance-wise, really, really great stuff. And it's a genre I've been watching a little bit more of this year. So adding another one to my list is definitely part of the goal. I'm hoping I will have watched it by the time we do the Letterboxd recap. But no, that is something that has eluded me so far.
And yes, you did hear her correctly. She has seen Wicked 4 times, and with the sing-along coming up here very shortly, I'm sure that will only be that number will only get higher before the end of the year. But Eric, we have one more submission before we talk about some of our honorable mentions as well as our selections for Best Picture. So let's go ahead and bring back our buddy Ivan for the last clip of the episode.
Hey guys, Ivan again. Movie of the year. The hardest category for me. Anime was easy in comparison. So we had great movies. You know, we had Dune Part 2, Civil War, which I actually really loved, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I know some people feel about Planet of the Apes. Oh, it's just ape CG nonsense. But you know what? I loved it. It was great. And then we had movies like Strange Darling, kind of like underground thriller movie. Like, so good. Like, so honestly, it goes between Dune Part 2 and Strange Darling. I don't know how to compare the two. If I'm saying it out loud right now, I'm gonna just say Dune Part 2 was my favorite, is my movie of the year. I could not be more excited. I was like anticipating that movie. So yeah, I'm gonna say Dune Part 2. But you should still check out these other ones and definitely check out Strange Darling. I'm doing an advertisement, and I wasn't hired for it. But yeah, Dune Part 2.
It'd be funny if Ivan was like, I was hired for for Strange Darling, but still, please go see it. So, yeah, Ivan, once we saw Dune Part 2, we talked to him very much in depth with him at the conventions because he has read the books as well. And yeah, I honestly thought that was. I'm not surprised. I mean that was his pick. But Strange Darling, I also don't know if that's a movie that I'm going to be able to sit through, but have heard quite a lot of positive things about.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely one that's been on my radar. Not necessarily my queue or my watch list, but I have heard a lot of good things. And of course, Dune Part 2, the biggest movie of the year at one point early on. It was supposed to be from last year. Going into this one, that'll definitely be coming up in the conversation here for sure. So, yeah, great, much different movies there, but great movies nonetheless.
Yeah, and he brought up movies like Civil War and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I think you liked Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a lot more than I did, and I like Civil War more than you did as well. It's funny how like these movies, you know, they kind of come and go. Like Civil War was one of the first movies we saw in 2024, and I definitely enjoyed it. I liked it more than Kingdom, but yeah, thanks for shout out to Ivan for shouting those out as well. But thank you to everybody that participated in submitting clips. We know it takes time out of your day, and even those of you that also responded on social media, it means so much. But Eric, let's get into our selections here as we are at the 2 hour and 15 minute mark about, and I'll bring up my honorable mentions here for a Best Picture first. His Three Daughters is a film that once again is unfortunately kind of floundering. I won't say floundering because I'm sure a lot of people really enjoy it, but just no one's really heard of it. It's on Netflix. It stars Elizabeth Olsen, Carrie Coon, Natasha Lyonne, and it is basically it's essentially a stage play because it takes place basically in one apartment and then like one bench outside of that apartment complex in New York City. And these performances were outstanding. It also hit a little close to home in terms of some stuff that I've gone through with my family, so that is very good. I hope people go check that out over on Netflix. Dee Dee, a movie that I watched very recently. Shout out to Cinema Joe. Dee Dee is a coming-of-age story about a Taiwanese immigrant, and it kind of hit home in terms of like the period of time that it took place, and just being an awkward teenage kid, and an awkward Asian teenage kid as well. Really, really good, and would certainly recommend it to quite a few people. Conclave. Eric is the one that put me on Conclave. It's not a film that I was necessarily familiar with or was on my radar until he had seen it. I went and paid to rent this film and check it out. It's outstanding. The performances are great, and just seeing John Lithgow be another punchable character was a real treat. But obviously, Ralph Fiennes, and anytime you get to see Stanley Tucci, that is a win in my book for sure. But Conclave, excellent. Eric, you'll be happy to know Godzilla X Kong and the New Empire is an honorable mention for me in terms of where it sits in the MonsterVerse. It's not my favorite MonsterVerse movie by any means necessary, but it's a film that I very much enjoyed. I mean, when that big monkey took the little monkey and hit that little monkey, hit the other big monkeys with the little monkey, that's cinema. So I don't know what more you could possibly want out of a film. And my very last two, Twisters, Glenn Powell, baby. if you feel it. What more can you say about Twisters? And then Eric, very, very close in terms of making this my best picture choice is The Wild Robot. So you probably know where I'm going for best picture based off of that. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions. I left Dune 2 for you.
Yeah. No, Phil gave you a little bit of a taste of what we're going to go over in more depth in our Letterboxd review. No movie came close, and by came close, I mean got 5 stars this year. And for reference, this, if it would have came out last year, would have been the only 5-star movie that I issued in 2023. So it would have topped that list as well. Dune Part 2 is that film. There is honestly, it's got to be a smear campaign at this point. With when it came out to now, it feels like people have just like disrespected this film because it's so good. It is so damn good. I feel like over time, a lot of great films have come out this year, and I don't think that people are really, I don't want to say not remembering Dune Part 2 because it's not a forgettable movie, but I think that distance from when they last watched it to having to make these decisions now have left Dune out of the conversations of Best Picture or Best Film of the Year. And for me, guys, I didn't enjoy Dune Part 1 when I first saw it. I didn't think I liked it. And I saw Dune Part 2 so skeptical that I would even enjoy the film. I walked out giving it a 4.5. We did a Dune Part 1 and then a Dune Part 2 watch party very soon after. And I said on my second viewing, yeah, no, I got to give this a 5. I just love this movie. And it's my bag, sci-fi. Phil has always been into like your Jurassic World. I was into Star Wars. Yeah, man, sign me up. Dune Part 2, my movie of the year. And man, is it close in score. But realistically, there was no other choice for me.
Yeah, no surprises at all that you went with Dune Part 2. And I have not seen the movie since March. So I've seen it at one time when we went to see it in theaters. I remember very much enjoying it. My whole thing with this is in 2023, you took issue with, and I'm starting to come around on this, with where you mentioned that, Spider-Verse was not a complete film back in 2023. And that's kind of how I feel about Dune Part 2. Am I going to be seated for the next film? Absolutely. I mean, I even thought about diving into the books as well, or at least maybe the audiobook, just because I was so interested in this world and seeing what was going to come next for these characters. But for me, as I've gotten away from it, I think I have just forgotten about it, which, it was a long time ago. We're talking about 9 months, and we've seen, as I mentioned, a lot of really good films since then. So I do need to go back and watch it again. When that will happen, I'm not 100% sure. But as I teased a moment ago, Eric, and I am right there in line with our buddy Jay from Urban Weirdo, It's What's Inside takes the top spot for me. The way that movie made me feel, I've talked about this with some of our friends and other people that I have not seen the movie. I have not felt that way in terms of just being absolutely blindsided by an ending or how things played out since inception. And in terms of storytelling, they're very different. In cinematography, obviously, they're very different. But I loved this movie, and as I said, I just am so bummed that so many people have not seen this movie because it only released on Netflix. I wish that there was some way to get this released in 2025 in theaters, because I think it would get even more praise than it already has now. But I went with It's What's Inside as my 2024 film of the year, but The Wild Robot, once again, almost took this spot as well.
Yeah, and The Wild Robot in contention for me, Conclave as well. It's What's Inside, very high up there. Not quite yet for Best Picture, but a couple of films that are on my radar that between now and the Letterboxd Awards I may be able to watch and may affect the top 5 or top 10. Sing Sing, if they ever let us watch that damn movie. I mean,
please.
That'd be great. I hear it's amazing. Again, I mentioned Nosferatu. You mentioned Dee Dee, which has been on my radar. I heard Love Lies Bleeding earlier in this episode. There's also this French adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo that just released that I've heard a lot of good things about. It's like a 3-hour film, but it's nowhere near us. So there are a couple different movies that have been on my radar, and that's just a little snippet of them. But again, I feel pretty confident at the top. I'd say the top 4, maybe the top 3 in my list, I feel pretty confident aren't moving anytime soon. So again, definitely happy with that. And in comparison to last year, Phil, Across the Spider-Verse was my number 1 movie. Godzilla -1 was number 2. I might flip-flop those looking back. So again, time definitely affects these ratings. And I always say it, a lot of these movies I've only seen once, but Dune is one of those movies I've seen multiple times, and I just can't get enough of it. So that makes sense why it's up there. And I just recommend, before you really lock in an opinion or a score, just watch a movie more than once. That's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. The 2024 Wait For It Awards. Oh, man, this was a whole lot of fun. Once again, thank you to everybody that participated. And we greatly appreciate everybody's kind words and, once again, taking the time to do that for us. But, Eric, man, we did it. For those you won't see it because of the magic of editing, but my voice is giving out here as we are about 2.5 hours in, almost 3 hours for Eric and I, because there is that Patreon pre-show, which we'll tell you a little bit more about here in just a moment. But Eric, anything else you want to mention for the this iteration of the Wait For It Awards? I'm sure 2025 is going to bring us just as many surprises, but anything else you want to tell our audience before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, I mean, this would be just a great opportunity. If you're listening to the end of this episode, you're obviously a fan of the show. We got a ton of stuff circling around this episode that you're going to really enjoy prior to this, or maybe after. It's really up to our friend Jay in the Super Bracket Bros cinematic universe, the holiday special. We do it every year. It's an audio only episode we release on all platforms for audio. And it is also on the other feeds of the podcasters that join us. So your friends, Game of Groans, Super Bracket Bros, Your Friendly Neighborhood Gamers, check that out. We do What Did I Miss? A bonus episode every month. That will continue here in the month of December. Foresight and Predictions, we've referenced a couple times. And then again, we're going to be doing a letterboxed recap for 2024, an additional bonus episode, likely, possibly, going to be a live stream, dates to come, and also the release date of that to come. So check us out. Make sure to follow us for all of that information. But yeah, Phil, after the holiday here, when you're listening to this episode, if you are a fan of the Wait For It podcast, we got quite a bit coming your way before the start of the new year.
Yeah, and you can keep up with that and every single content creator that you heard here today, you'll find in the show notes of this episode. Make sure you click our Linktree link and you'll find all of our social media pages. The most important ones to keep up with being Instagram, TikTok, for now, depending on when you're listening to this episode, our Discord channel, Twitch, as well as YouTube. If you want to support the show or any of the amazing content creators you have heard here today, you can do quite a few things. Following us on social media is incredibly helpful for the podcasters. You can head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave 5-star reviews. For those of us that have YouTube channels, like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff. And tagging us on social media and letting other people know that you're listening, letting us know that you are listening, because we love hearing from you, and we love hearing from people and letting us know that they enjoy our content. But there is even more Wait For It podcast to be had if you are interested in it. So if you want to know a way that you can support the podcast a little bit extra and get some behind the scenes stuff, Eric will let you know all about that before wrapping it up.
Yeah, so this episode's actually dropping on Christmas for our patrons, who we truly appreciate, in addition to all the extra content, and that includes things like early access, behind the scenes, and much, much more. If you'd like to contribute to our patron and become a part of the community, alongside members like Stefan, Corey, T3 Kato, and Vintage Macaroni, you could definitely make sure to do so on that platform. I definitely just forgot Briar's name, who's our first patron, so maybe this isn't the best opportunity, but you know what? This is a long episode, okay? And I'm really trying here, so we really appreciate any support, though. Likes, comments, shares, listens, any of that, the reviews, all of that jazz, and just the fact that you're listening to this long of an episode really means a lot. You heard a lot of kind words from the clips that were shared here. Those things go a long way in us driving forward into another long year of content in 2025. So with that being said, my name is Mr. Eric Almighty. That is my co-host, Phil the Filipino. And please don't forget, we release new content for the podcast every Wednesday, in addition to other platforms like your Twitch and your TikTok. And all you got to do is wait for it.
So, I heard you're looking for a go-to source for entertainment.
Wait for it.
Gaming?
Wait for it.
Anime?
Plus Ultra!
Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.